AFL buck.
Why get your news from the ABC News app?
Well, it's part of my daily routine.
I check it on my phone when I stop for a break.
I can focus on local, national or world news. It's my choice.
I get an alert when something new comes in.
Love the live blogs. Follow them all day.
There's more than just headline stories, you know.
It's news that makes a difference.
Why do I get my news from the ABC News app?
I trust it.
I trust ABC News Online.
And it's free.
It's free.
For free news you can trust, download the ABC News app.
ABC Sport.
We begin this broadcast by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which this match will be played today and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples listening.
One state.
And they will come from everywhere.
4 days.
This will be special.
9 matches.
You just cannot take your ears off this game.
And all 18 clubs for a round of football like we've never seen before.
We're going to put on one hell of a show.
Snaps across the body and the party continues.
This is AFL Gather Round, live from South Australia.
Everybody, and listen to this brand new groove. It's going downtown in this party. Bring your friends and family.
Gather bursts away, kicks the goal.
This is Gather Round.
The celebrations as they come from everywhere.
Grandstand AFL.
100% pure footy.
Perkins to the hand pass to Stringer. He's going to go the barrel. Don't tell me.
Cause here it comes, here it comes.
Cartmart follows up. Finbury sells the dummy for an early goal of the year. 55 out. He's given this plenty. That's a magnificent strike of the football.
AFL Gather Round.
Something big is coming. Something big is coming.
He stops, clocks, fires and goals.
Something big is coming. Something big is coming.
What a piece of individual class.
Something big is coming.
Biggest moment of his life. 55 loads up all the way.
Fill your lungs, are you ready for it?
High altitude flight from Shamo.
All the tricks on display.
AFL.
Two-step bang.
This kid is going places.
Puts the Jets on and kicks it on the run. Boy, does he love it.
He launches an absolute rocket.
Oh, the home fans like that. From 50, he goes whack.
One bounce at 40, one bounce at 20, and he goes.
Loads up with that right foot. Cannon on the right boot. Floats it through.
Their season's well and truly alive.
This is AFL Gather Round on radio,
ABC Sport Digital,
and now streaming on the ABC Listener.
Something big is coming. I know.
It's the second game of the doubleheader at Adelaide Oval as Gather Round continues. The rain tumbles down as we await the entrance of both Port Adelaide and the Western Bulldogs, both involved in thrillers last week. Port getting home against Sydney by 2 points thanks to a spoil on the defensive goal line from Aliir. It was so close to being another loss for the Power, but they are victorious and survive and going to this game hoping to continue to improve, while the Western Bulldogs have won their past two and they downed Richmond by 5 points last week. Tim English was outstanding. 2 goals, 23 hit-outs, 9 tackles. Tom Liberatore kicked 2 goals as well. And tonight he celebrates his 200th game, one of the genuine characters still in the Australian Football League. Clint Wilden with you in commentary. Aaron Bryans is alongside me, joined by 2 very special experts, Josh Franku and Luke Ball, with us to really get stuck into Port versus the Western Bulldogs. I was here back in 2021 when the Western Bulldogs took on Port Adelaide in a preliminary final and crushed them by 71 points. You did wonder what sort of damage that did to Port. They lost the next 5 to start season 2022, and they haven't looked the same team since. Ken Hinkley remains under pressure. It's eased a bit after last week's win, but there's still some questions being asked about this side. And Luke Ball and Josh Franco, I can say nothing more than this. I jumped into one taxi today to go from the ABC back to the hotel. Cab driver, Uber driver, passionate Port Adelaide supporter, who for a whole 19 minutes told me why Port must improve and what we're seeing isn't good enough. It was a shock to those of us visiting the town. But I would say this. if they can get up against tonight against another side who would be thinking that they're a chance to press their claims to move back into the 8. Both teams 2-2. Maybe that will continue to just swing the Power fans back in favour of their coach and their team. Welcome to both of you. This is a big one. What are you expecting, Luke? Josh?
Thanks, Clint. Yeah, it's great to be here, and it's this wonderful round continues. The rain's trying to dampen the parade a little bit, isn't it? But great to see so many people here again. And yeah, it's another fascinating contest off the back of what we've just seen too. I mean, who would have seen that? Who would have picked that before today? But it just shows in this comp, Josh, we know what we've known for years, that if you're not on, if you're just off your game a little bit, you're there and you're right for the picking. So really looking forward to seeing who's on their game tonight and who's not.
Well, it's interesting too, Clint, in the opening you talked about the pressure on Ken Hinkley. And it's interesting how fickle this industry is and this game is in terms of coaching. You talk about an extra 2 metres, all of a sudden Ken Hinkley's under the microscope again. Elias spoils that ball back into play. They win the game, they get the 4 points. They move on to Adelaide Oval tonight in what becomes, almost sounds a bit like a broken record, but it becomes a must-win for Port Adelaide and for Ken Hinkley.
And indeed, I would still say for the Western Bulldogs, if they can go win their 3 games in a row, the question marks that were being raised against, is their forward line too tall? Are the Bulldogs the sort of team who can press into a top 4 position? They start to go away again if they can go 3 games in a row. But there are some big outs for this game. Jonas has been managed to term a grumbly knee, so he goes out, the captain, though he hasn't been in tremendous form either. Mead's omitted, but he is back into the group, if you like. He's been named as the sub, the Port Adelaide sub for tonight. The Western Bulldogs sub, by the way, one of their premiership players from 2016, Toby McLean. They lose Keith down back through concussion. That's an enormous blow for the Western Bulldogs. Smith is out, another big blow with a calf. Crozier misses with a back. Waitman, though, returning. Duray and O'Brien, the other inclusions for the side. There's been no late changes, but I look at those teams and you go, Jonas almost balanced out by Keith in terms of the experience they bring. Smith's a blow for the Bulldogs. Waitman, though, swings it back a little bit to them. How do you assess these 2 groups as they're about to run out for it?
Yeah, and obviously conditions play a factor too, so potentially the keys at both ends won't come into play as much tonight. I think Waitman's a huge in for them, Josh. I think they've really missed his bounce and a vibrancy in that forward half, certainly in those first 2 weeks where they really looked impotent going forward, didn't they? Now they've got their game going a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but to me, he's a really critical player. We know he can play tall, but most importantly, when the ball hits the ground, and it's going to be on the ground a lot tonight, we know that. And if he can get at the feet of those key forwards as a reference point, he should be in the game a lot tonight. I think he's a big in.
You look, absolutely is, and you talk about Dre come back into the side as well, and I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the conditions. Having a look at the radar, I don't think the rain's going to let up. So having a couple of smalls come back into the contest for the Western Bulldogs is a massive plus for them.
Let's go down into the rooms. Firstly, Aaron Bryans is with the Power. Aaron.
Thanks, Clint. Downstairs with Port Adelaide assistant coach Josh Carr. Josh, firstly, can you take us into the emotions behind the win last week? It felt like it meant a lot to the playing group.
Yeah, look, we had a tough couple of weeks, really, from a performance point of view. So, going to Sydney, we thought it was a great opportunity as a group to be together and get our game going. And obviously played with good intensity, pressure around the footy, and obviously came right down to the last kick of the day. It was nice to get that win.
Won the contested footy count as well, which at times has been an issue for the club. How do you make sure you keep that consistent tonight?
Yeah, look, it's one of those things that we had those couple of weeks where we got belted and, probably our tendency to get out of the contest wasn't there. It was probably a lot of post-stoppage contested possessions where we were falling behind. So, there's a bit of structure to it, but at the same time there's a bit of work rate that we had to lift.
The Doggies tonight, how do you get on top of them?
Yeah, well, I think everyone knows how elite they are in and around the contest. So we've got to, match them in that number, and you don't have to win it, but you've got to be pretty much even to give yourself the best opportunity. So big job with obviously the names like they've got in and around the midfield.
Slightly smaller down back tonight without Tom Jonas, so Leah and Mackenzie, your big 2. Traditionally, Leah likes to float and intercept. Is he going to play man-on-man tonight or continue what he normally does best?
Look, Leah's had some pretty big jobs, this year. He's probably been our number 1 key defender, playing on the best players and still being able to assist in there at the same time. So he'll have a big job ahead of him tonight, but hopefully the conditions sort of help that a little bit and get the ball on the ground and we can run it out there.
And Ollie Wines, Josh, quiet by his standards, still getting over 20 a game, but, I mean, he's a Brownlow medalist for the season, or is it just the fact that you've got so many stars in the middle now?
Oh, no, Ollie's building. Like, he had 3 weeks of training before games really started, probably 2 weeks training before the pre-season game started, so he didn't have a pre-season, so it's understandable that he might not be at his best, but he's still delivering in his role, and that's what's important, and his best will come, and it'll come at the right time.
Best of luck tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Josh Carr downstairs with Aaron Bryans. We'll go across to the Bulldogs camp in just a moment. Interesting to have a look. In regards to scoring, the Western Bulldogs have kicked the second least number of goals in the competition, just 36 going into tonight. Port Adelaide have had the second most amount of goals kicked against them, 59. So you get a side who is struggling to score versus a side that is struggling to stop scoring. So on many of those occasions, you'd have to think the Western Bulldogs would have some sort of an advantage when these two sides go head-to-head, Luke Ball and Josh Franku.
Yeah, well, the other thing as well, and looking at Port Adelaide play the first 3 rounds, they've been really inconsistent, and Josh Carr mentioned it in that interview just then with Aaron, with their contested ball numbers. Against Geelong, I think they were minus 57, which is a cricket score. They got absolutely belted against the Crows as well. They arrested that last week against Sydney. But these conditions obviously really do help in terms of where the game's played in that sort of phone box, that layer 1 stuff. So Port Adelaide need to be on their game in that contested
Well,
space.
it's a non-negotiable tonight, isn't it?
Yeah,
that is where the game's going to be won and lost. I was here Thursday night, Josh, and Adelaide's first quarter, that was an absolute demolition job around the contest. Not only did they win it inside, but then they were able to get outside Carlton as well. Now, we know the Dogs, a big strength of the Dogs in that middle of the ground is their ability to flick the ball around through hands. Is that going to be more of a challenge tonight? Does the message go out? No, let's maybe one handball and let's get it going forward. Going to be a big territory game tonight, we know. Yeah, fascinating midfield battle tonight because they have been a bit below their best, Port, in the first month of footy, as were the Dogs in the first 2 weeks. And led by their skipper, they really turned it around in the last 2 weeks.
And historically too, even when you've been involved in the AFL system at Sydney, at Adelaide for 12 months on the Gold Coast, when you come up against the Western Bulldogs, if you can't apply heat in layer 1 and you let them get that handball game going, they will cut you to pieces. And it's interesting too, like you just mentioned it, that these conditions might not be conducive to Western Bulldogs' traditional style of getting the ball and flicking around by hand. It'll be really interesting to see how they approach this game.
Let's go back down to Aaron. He's in the Bulldogs camp. Aaron.
Thanks, Clint. Downstairs in the Western Bulldogs room ahead of Bounce Down tonight with Mark Webb, the assistant coach of the Western Bulldogs. Mark, it's a big weekend, to be honest. The atmosphere is incredible. How are the boys feeling ahead of Bounce Down?
Yeah, excited. I think obviously coming out and having a game obviously before us is something different, but we're all really focused on a really good game against the opposition that's playing some real good football.
You had a great win over the Tigers last week. A big important part of that was the centre clearances. You got up for a statistic that you've been struggling with at times across the season. What was different last week and how do you keep that going into tonight?
I think it's just making sure we get the balance right of being clean around the contest, getting the ball forward at the right times in the conditions and trying to lock it in too. I think that's really important. Two sides like Port and ourselves are good front end teams, so it's going to be a strong battle around the clearances to see which team can lock it in.
The difficult hole to fill is that of Bailey Smith, who's out for the next fortnight. How do you combat that loss?
Yeah, I think the opportunity for Mitch Hannon to come in and has been really good. He showed when he came on last week, he had a really strong impact. I think we've got the right balance in the amount of mids working through both the inside and going forward too. So we think we've got the opportunity to certainly look after Bailey, but also fill that spot until he comes back in a few weeks' time.
200 games for Libba tonight. It feels like he's playing a career best season at the moment. Tell us a bit about why he's doing so well now and how good he's been for this footy club.
I think he's really strong with his attention to detail. His work pre-training is really strong. He really works on his craft. It doesn't just happen. He's a player that works hard, brings others along with him. He's so much loved throughout the group and everyone's proud that he's got to 200 games. And he's certainly, as a player and a person, who's really a mature head around the group, so it's a fantastic effort.
Exciting opportunity tonight up forward. Tom Jonas out of the Port Adelaide lineup means Aliir and Mackenzie are probably their two biggest tools. Have you spoken with Jamara and also Aaron about how you combat that tonight?
I think they're in good form too, so there's no doubt Aliir's game last week was a real strength and he had an impact to help Port Adelaide win, so we know they're going to be dangerous down there, but we also think we've got the right capabilities through, like obviously Rory, Jamara and then Aaron to be able to give us our tools some good opportunities, and I think their ability to take marks and then our smalls to bring it to ground and impact is going to be a really important part of the game.
Cheeky late one for you with Aaliyah. A couple of years ago in the prelim final, a fair bit of attention was put into him. Do you let him do his own thing tonight, or are you thinking about doing the same?
I think he'll go to someone, there's no doubt, and you try and make sure whatever player plays on him has an impact. I think that's the key. There's nothing special we'll do in that fact, but he has the ability. Obviously, he can take a strong matchup, and he took Bud, who's one of the greatest of all time. So his ability to play on any type of player is going to certainly help them. It's just us being able to move the ball well enough and the player playing on him to be able to win those contests and try and limit his impact.
Mark, thanks for your time and best of luck tonight.
No problems, thanks.
Mark Webb from the Bulldogs downstairs with Aaron Bryans. Grandstand AFL at Adelaide Oval on ABC Radio and Sport Digital and streaming on the ABC Listen app. Just look for the AFL button. Clint Wilden with you alongside Aaron Bryans in commentary, Josh Franco and Luke Ball, our experts. The Bulldogs about to make their way out onto the ground. There'll be a big cheer for them as the fireworks, the pyrotechnics explode into life. The rain continues to tumble down. The Bulldogs in their traditional home jumper, the blue with the red and white hoops. And, of course, they've got the white shorts on tonight. It's not technically a Port Adelaide home game, but they have won the toss and they are the home side. I wonder, do we get to hear Never Tear Us Apart before the start of the game? We'll have to wait to see that. Aaron Bryans gives a thumbs up. Is that a thumbs up, as in you just jumped back up to the box?
I'm pretty confident, Wheelie, that we're going to hear Never Tear Us Apart tonight, which, to be honest, we're going to see a lot of, excitement and the best that South Australia has to offer across this weekend. But, I mean, it's not really a packed house, but if we can get 25,000 singing Never Tear Us Apart, it's certainly one of the great aspects and enjoyments that the state has to offer.
Obviously, Gather Round has attracted a lot of positive attention. The Western Bulldogs and Carlton, are they feel a bit ripped off playing the two Adelaide home-based teams?
So surely it counts as a home game, does it? Surely this is one of their home games.
I don't think it does.
Well, it doesn't. Technically, no one's got a home game.
Okay.
So while Port Adelaide, they flipped a coin to see who would be the home team in these circumstances. So Port actually won that toss. So it doesn't count as a home game, even though it is played here in Adelaide. And it couldn't, because you would have those challenges then about how would you deal with your members, where certain clubs would have an extra game for their members and so on. But I know what you're saying, and I know what you're saying as well, particularly for the, as you say, the Carlton side and the Western Bulldogs come across and go, well, hang on, these actually have a genuine home ground advantage. Right. How do we deal with that?
I will question the validity of the coin toss, because Adelaide actually released a specifically designed Guernsey for this round, assuming that would be the home team.
Double-sided coin, you reckon?
If they didn't get it, Carlton would have worn their navy blue and they would have had to wear their normal strips. So I'm not sure if it was really as true to its word as we're told.
Well, they could always roll it out for another one of their theme games. It's all about how much you can sell marketing-wise, isn't it? Port Adelaide about to make their way out on the ground. Before they do, just a quick thought from both of you. We mentioned before, but these conditions, if you're going to play your 200th game and your name is Liberatore, he is made for you tonight.
Absolutely, yeah. And what a player he's been. I remember playing, debuted in 2011. I remember playing against him and standing him at in the middle of the ground in his first couple of years, and just right from the start being so impressed at his ability to read the play around the stoppage in particular, how clean he was and how strong he was from an early age. And of course he's gone on to have a terrific career, premiership player, and probably in a sense suffered from being in a midfield with some real superstar, much more heralded type players. So yeah, congratulations to him. An amazing career. And you're right, Clint. You couldn't draw up a game that's more suited for him than you could then tonight.
It was funny you say that, because every time you say that word Liberatore, and you're a different vintage to me, Luke, I think of his old man.
Shiver down your spine, Josh?
I get a shiver down my spine. But he's been an absolute superstar, Liberatore.
Having to overcome a couple of knee injuries, just like his dad did too. Yep. He's been tremendous, a premiership player, a fairest and best as well. Yeah,
and he's in good form this year. He's been one of the ones in this first month that's really held his own. He's number 2 disposals, 2 in contested possessions, which we know he brings, and of course number 1 in tackles. So he's going to be a key player from tonight with Bailey Smith out. So a little bit more responsibility will fall on him. McRae, Chalor, you'd think will spend a lot more time in the middle of the ground. So yeah, again, fascinated by the midfield battle tonight.
Actually, in terms of disposals, never had a better season, averaging 27 at this point in time. Congratulations to Tom Liberatore bringing up his 200th game. His dad played 283. They are just synonymous with the Western Bulldogs. As you can hear, the power are out on the ground. Just repeating, no late changes. The subs, Mead for Port and McLean for the Western Bulldogs. The Bulldogs warming up to the left of our broadcast position, the scoreboard end of the ground, and the Riverbank stand end is where Port Adelaide are just going through their motions as we prepare for the second game on this Saturday here at Adelaide Oval. Earlier at Mount Barker, Brisbane crushed North Melbourne 22-20, 152 to North's 12-5-77. And then just a short time ago here, the Bombers gone over the Demons. That was an upset, 15-14, 104 to Melbourne, 11-11, 77. Before we get into this, let's get the thoughts of our experts. How does this all play out? It is a big game for both of these clubs. They both sit 2-2 after the 4 games they've played so far. Who prevails? How and why? Let's find out. Josh Franco and Luke Ball.
Well, when you look at, and I guess being a midfielder, former midfielder in the competition, I'm clearly biased towards the midfield battle. And we mentioned the stars that line up for the Western Bulldogs: Trelaw, Bonapelli, McRae, Liberatore. The list goes on and on. For me, and I guess putting my Port Adelaide hat on, that's a real concern. And in terms of the conditions and the way that the Western Bulldogs like to play, and the area where Port Adelaide have been deficient in recent weeks in terms of that contested ball differential, I'm a little bit worried about that just in terms of how this game unfolds. The conditions, as we look outside at the moment, there's only very, very light rain falling. It doesn't look like it's going to have a huge amount of impact currently on the handling of the footy, but as I said, it just remains to be seen. This midfield battle is going to be critical to the result.
Yeah, it is, Josh, you're right. And I think certainly early in particular, the territory game is going to be critical. Yep. Yeah, and from an away team, the Bulldogs coming over here, they'd want to get on top around the ball and try and trap the ball in their front half. I think that's been the thing that's let them down, certainly in those first couple of games. Their ability to defend the opposition, transitioning the ball from back half to scoring was really poor, really ordinary. And it was last year. It was the carry on from last year. That's really what let them down last year. We know how good they are around the ball, winning the ball, flicking the ball around with hands, and they started to become reasonably potent up forward with Norton and the like, but their ability to defend from a team point of view, so defend the ground, I guess, and defend the opposition in transition was terrible last year, and started the year really poorly as well. Now, they've addressed it in the last couple of weeks, and tonight, again potentially the conditions might aid them in doing that, but that's going to be a big thing tonight, because Port at their best, we know that, are really strong in terms of being able to get energy on the ball and getting the ball from their back half into their forward half, down to those dangerous forwards to score.
Yeah, even having looked at Port Adelaide in the first few rounds, they clearly become a little bit more attacking in the way that they want to move the ball. But as you know, Luke, the price you pay for that is that if you get the ball turned over, you don't have time to get set up behind the footy. And they have been, I guess, a little bit sluggish in terms of covering outlets and locking the ball in their front half. So, again, interesting to see how that pans out.
It's going to be a night for basics, isn't it?
Yep.
And I think Essendon showed the way in that previous game as the rain started to fall. Nothing wrong with a long kick, nothing wrong with the territory, knock the ball on, take the yards, be predictable. So, again, in that previous game, the Bombers, long kick, outnumbered for the ball, and at times it wasn't pretty, but that outnumber enabled them to have that free player and surge the ball forward and ultimately kick a winning score. So that's going to be the order of the day, particularly early tonight.
Would that be a coaching directive, do you think, going into this game? Would that be part of the pre-match address around obviously the conditions? It's going to be slippery, the rain's going to come and go potentially all night. Don't overuse the ball by hand, get it going forward, get territory.
Yeah, I think you're most recently in the coach's box, Josh. I think it has to be, doesn't it? And look, you almost shouldn't need to say it. Both teams have got enough experience and leadership around the ball to know that they need to adjust in conditions like this. So I'd be surprised if we see the Dogs trying to flick the ball and over-possess the ball out of clearance early, get the ball forward, bring Waitman and these sort of players into the game from Port's point of view, bring Rioli into the game, bring McEntee, bring these smaller players into the game and see if you can't scrap some goals early and build that lead.
Bally, Josh, both sides 2-2. Port Adelaide could easily be 1-3 if it weren't for an extra 5 metres on the Ollie Florent kick. The Western Bulldogs conceded 7 consecutive goals to Richmond last week, so both sides haven't overly impressed considering their equal ledger, but where do you think they actually sit in the scheme of things ahead of tonight? Do you think they're top 8 side?
Well, it's hard to tell, isn't it? I mean, no one who has impressed, really. I think St Kilda have been pretty solid, haven't they, over the 4 games? Collingwood look dangerous, don't they? But it does feel like, Josh, it's going to be one of those years. It doesn't feel like there's a standout at the moment. It feels like there's a big group of teams in that sort of middle of the pack. You know, are they healthy? That plays a big part. What's their confidence like? So it feels like these 2 teams at the moment are in that middle of the rung group.
Yep.
It is early in the season, but I think to that point, banking these early wins, because it is going to get tougher, and everyone talks about it being a marathon. Banking these early wins on these sort of 50-50 type games are critical.
Well, Aaron, we watched the game, round 1, Port Adelaide v Brisbane, and they were absolutely unbelievable in that second half. And it was almost walked away from the game saying they're a top 4. And then we saw them the following week against Collingwood absolutely capitulate. So it's a bit hard to get a gauge on. We've heard Ken Hinkley talk about Port Adelaide being and having the best list they've had in his time at the footy club. They've just got to put it together. And at the moment, they haven't really been able to do that consistently.
Almost feels like chemistry in a way. It was really the third term against Brisbane. They put Horn Francis in the middle with Butters and Rosie, and it just clicked.
Yep.
And ever since then, they've really struggled to find that again. Even against Sydney, it felt like they were the lesser team of the 2 across the night. And I was surprised they got over the line in the end, because Sydney, around the ball, felt like they were dominating.
Gee, question to Luke as well, just on notice. Horn Francis, how have you seen his start to the season?
Oh, I've been really impressed. I think so, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the off-field side of things. Obviously, I can only comment on what I've seen on-field. I just think he's looked certainly fitter than he was last year, and now that comes with another pre-season, clearly, and he looks happier out there. He's getting some midfield exposure where he's been able to show his strength in the contest and his power, and he's been dynamic getting out of contested situations. I think it was a couple of weeks ago he started to get the ball. I mean, that's going to be the next evolution, I think, getting the 18-20 possession game up to high 20s into the 30s. And you look at someone like a Petrarca, and it took him 4 or 5 years to get to that point, didn't it, to be able to build that base over 2 or 3 pre-seasons where he doesn't sort of fatigue and drop off later in the quarters and in the game. So clearly he's a prodigious talent. We know that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him in person tonight.
Thoughts of our experts tonight on Grandstand AFL, ABC Radio, around the nation, Sport Digital, and streaming on the ABC Listen app. Luke Ball alongside Josh Franco, Clint Wilden and Aaron Bryans in commentary. The other member of our team is downstairs. We're pretty happy to be remaining in the dry. What's it like where you are now, Jack Burketta?
Oh, thankfully it's pretty dry at the moment. I won't hold my breath though, because I've had a look at the radar and it looks like this will only be a pretty brief respite. It's still going to be a very wet and slippery game at the moment, even though it's not raining, just because of the amount of rain we had earlier. But apart from that, there is absolutely zero breeze to speak of, and there is actually quite a big crowd in, given the conditions. And it's good to see a good mix of people wearing a whole lot of different strips, everyone representing their team colours at the moment. And another beautiful thing about Gather Round, I've just seen Ken Hinkley and Brad Scott chatting for the last 10 minutes. So it's good to see the 2 coaches not involved, just coming together and chewing the fat just minutes before Ken Hinkley has to get involved in this one. But it should be a cracking game. Looking forward to this one, and let's hope we do hear Never Tear Us Apart. It just adds a little bit of something special to this one.
No, I agree. I would hate to not have it here. If I was coming to a Port Adelaide, whether it's a home game or not, a home game technically, I would expect to hear that.
You would, yeah.
I would expect to hear it. If I'm visiting from interstate, and I remember the first time I came here after they introduced it, I genuinely wanted to hear it played, so I really hope it does get a run.
I'm a bit worried. We're just looking at the clock. It's 7:18. We've got a 7:20 bounce. Are we running out of time? When do they usually?
No, it's right on the
bank. Yep. Okay, right. Yep. All right.
I think they schedule it so as soon as it finishes, the
ball bounces.
Goes,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still got a bit of time up
the clock's ticking.
Yep.
Toss has taken place downstairs. What's happened, Aaron?
I think Ollie Wines has won and decided to kick to the northern end. It was the most minuscule of gestures as he won and pointed to the hill, but I believe that Port Adelaide, should be kicking to the left hand of your radio dial, so the northern end here at the Adelaide Oval.
And Ollie Wines captain tonight for Port Adelaide, with, of course, Tom Jonas missing out.
We could live for 1,000 years. If I hurt you, I make wine from your tears. I told you that we could fly
Port Adelaide fans have gathered round, so too the Bulldogs, so too football supporters from across the nation. We're here at Adelaide Oval. It's Port and the Bulldogs on Grandstand AFL. Here's Aaron Bryant.
Early fly from English, who wins it down for the Dogs and hands it off to Treloar. Combination to the 200 gamer Libba, who clears it up towards centre half forward. Gathered by Bontempelli, gives it off to Daniel. It's the Dogs who'll be kicking to the northern end. They head towards the top of the goal square. Norton's outnumbered, brought it to ground, but Horne-Francis was front and square. He'll clear it out to the western side, looking to a one-on-one. Burne-Jones battling with Dale, neither can control it, and Jones can't reach the footy as it rolls over the boundary line. At left half forward for the Western Bulldogs.
Big job for Scott Lycett tonight, Josh. I think Tim English is fast developing into the number one ruckman in the game, or certainly right up there, especially with Max Gawn out injured at the moment. So huge contest, that one in the ruck.
Lycett just gets to the front and wins it down for Port up against English. They just head back to their position where they were a moment ago. The ball will be thrown back in. That rain got heavier again for a short time.
Good to see the two skippers lining up on each other too. I thought maybe Willem Drew might go to the Bont, but he's starting on the bench, so Wines and Bontempelli lining up next to each other.
One down by the Bulldogs. It came to Bontempelli, got it onto Daniel, kicked towards centre half forward. Chance to clear. Bergman got a kick. Goes down the throat, though, of Daniel, who stands just forward of the logo on the commentary wing. Couple of disposals for him now. This will be his third as he puts it inside forward 50. Alir got a hand to it. He had Norton behind him, and Ugal Hagen looking to just come in from the side. Alir was up to the task and sees it across the line for a throw-in. No score early stages. We've gone 90 seconds into the first term. Grandstand AFL at Adelaide Oval.
Great to have Clint Wilden in the box from out west. Toss back into play. Scott Lycett front position. The double slap out of defensive 50. Looking for Butters. Spun a full 360 by Treloar, but got a handball away. Boat caught in the tackle. Just got boot to ball, but turned it over. English to Bontempelli. His handball smothered by Butters. Now the Power can rebound. Houston goes long. A hit in hope. Up towards the logo. Bruce battling with Dixon. Brought it to ground, then wrapped up in the tackle by the big man for the Power. We'll get a ball up on centre wing.
Luke, probably an example there with Bontempelli. Probably should have got the ball on the boot. Look for that extra handball. Play to the conditions. Get it going forward.
Tossed up in front of the benches. Lycett wins it down. Straight to Liberatore, though. Handball clear. Finds Bailey Williams. Off to Caleb Daniel. One of three South Australian Dogs tonight, but he's kicked it out on the full on the left. Free kick, Port Adelaide at right half back.
Ball thrown back to Houston. We actually do have the three traditional football states represented tonight. Good ball from Victoria, so from WA, and a couple of South Australians. The kick's down the commentary wing. Bontempelli got a hand to it. Spills later. Dixon turns, puts it inside forward 50. Good defensive mark coming out. Liam Jones. Slipping over was Marshall. Jones was there to then hand it off to Richards, who moves it into the right back pocket. Chance to rebound here for the Western Bulldogs. Comes back towards right half back. Marking there's Josh Bruce. Originally O'Brien. Sent it beyond defensive 50. Kick towards the outer wing. No mark taken. Spills to ground. Shoveled back by Port. Taken then by Farrell. He'll kick it towards left half forward. Powell Pepper tried to drag it in one-handed. O'Brien keeps it in. Goes short to Bruce under real pressure. Tackled and holding the ball. They want to play the advantage. Powell Pepper snaps around the body and kicks the ball. It was the pressure coming from McEntee that saw the ball spill free. Powell Pepper pounced and he kicks the first. One straight six. The Bulldogs yet to score. We've gone nearly 4 minutes in the opening term.
Yeah, good call, Clint. Good pressure, forward pressure. It's going to be critical again tonight. I thought it was a bit of a hospital handball from Richards. He was on his left foot and he gave it to a stationary Josh Bruce, who was immediately under pressure. Could have possibly taken the... It was Tim O'Brien, rather. Sorry, apologies to who did I say?
You lost me there, Josh, to be honest.
Sorry, Ed Richards, yeah, no, there you go. But, yeah, just put him under pressure, didn't it? And good tackle that set up the goal. And he probably had to kick it in the end, didn't he? Because it was a free kick. It was a difficult shot at goal from Powell Pepper, but good enough to kick the first.
How about the noise as well? The second game of the doubleheader, obviously not packed house, but about 30,000 you'd hope. It sounds electric. In the middle, one down. Treloar can crumb. Kicks towards the 50 for the Dogs and Alir. Their main man down back cuts it off. It's their secondary tall behind Mackenzie tonight without Jonas. On the 45, pops it to Horne-Francis. Back edge of the centre square. Looks wide. Big cheers there. The Victorian supporters, over the border.
There's some North supporters that have hung around for the game from today. Come back in from Mount Barker.
Found his look-alike in Bergman. Heads up the eastern wing looking for Dixon. Brought it to ground in the pack. Front and square was Powell Pepper. He's wrapped up immediately by Dale. We'll get a ball up left half forward for the Power. They're leading by 6 points. Early stages of the opening term.
Thrown aloft. It comes out for the Bulldogs. Bontempelli kicked into traffic. Eaglehagen tried to flick it on. Couldn't quite pick it up. Chance here for Port to move it around. Farrell will kick across the centre circles. Burton marks on his chest. Continues on a run. Kicks into the right forward pocket. Marshall brings it to ground. Trying to get there. McEntee can't quite first time. Bulldogs try to emerge with it. Dale wrapped up by Burne-Jones. Spunning the tackle. Taken to ground. Ball up.
Port Adelaide looked pretty sharp. Pressure around the ball's been really good.
Rain continues to fall here at Adelaide as Dixon wins it down. Came out the side to Williams of the Bulldogs. He's tackled immediately. Clearing kick for the Dogs beyond defensive 50. Bounces out towards Farrell. Tackled the moment he received it. Hannon takes him to ground. Ball up again. The call. Left half back for the Western Bulldogs. It's Port Adelaide, though, with the only goal off the boot of Sam Powell-Pepper. They lead by 6 points.
Quick ball up. Lycett slapped it in hope. Backwards in the end to Wines, who kicks off a step up towards the 50. Dixon forced to spoil. He did well. Got it to Burne-Jones. Here's Rioli. The magical master from 45 hits the left-hand goalpost. It sat in the air for an eternity, but just couldn't creep over the line. Minor score for the Power, 1-1-7. The Western Bulldogs yet to score 6.5 in. Jack Paqueta on the boundary.
It's really interesting. The Port Adelaide have mixed things up a bit with Miles Bergman playing as the deepest defender and Darcy Burne-Jones, the All-Australian defender, playing in the half-forward line on a defensive role in Bailey Dale.
Wines got the footy, threw it on the boot, kicked inside forward 50, defensive mark to O'Brien for the Bulldogs. Looks to switch play. Down low, Bruce had to stretch, gathered right in front of his bootlaces, goes short to Richards. Marks at left half back, just beyond his defensive 50. Kicks down the commentary wing and he spots lob. Uncontested grab. Burton couldn't get there quickly enough. He's just shy of centre wing for the Bulldogs. Still with the bright blonde peroxide hair. Kicks in the direction. Oh, Waitman is up! Lovely fly towards left half forward. Use Farrell as the step ladder. He goes inside forward 50 and another terrific mark. Flying up into the air, that's a beauty. Waitman finds Hannon, who can go back and have a shot. It's a tight angle. He'll start from no more than 3 or 4 metres in from the boundary at left half forward. He'll kick from about 45 out.
Yeah, I was going to say, talk about players with X Factor. That was unbelievable from Waitman.
Not a bad first touch for the year, is it?
Yeah.
It's an absolute screamer from Waitman that has led to this. Here comes Hannon. The 29 on his back. He's missing out to the right-hand side. It won't have the carry. Port content to rush it through. Oh, umpire spotted a free kick. It's coming back here to English. Have to have a look at the replay to see how he was infringed. But he'll be able to shoot on goal, 45-degree angle from no more than 15 out.
Just looking at the reaction of Scott Lycett, he seems a little bit frustrated with that decision. I think the umpire signalled holding.
Here's Tim English, comes in, kicks the goal. The Bulldogs with their first. It comes at the 8-minute mark of the opening term. They're 1 straight 6, trailing Port, who are 1-1-7 on Grandstand AFL.
Yeah, we'll need a bit of a look at the replay here, won't we, Clint? But it's a bit of a gift, really, for Tim English. Pretty even start, 5 inside 50s each, so both teams are settling into this game nicely. So we have another look at that absolute hanger. He's taken a few of those before. First one at his new number 3. Still can't get a look at the replay of this free kick, but anyway, it's a frustrating one for Scott Lycett as the rain just starts to absolutely pour down.
Our thoughts with Jack Paqueta downstairs. The voices of Josh Franco, Luke Ball, Australian midfielders with us tonight. Aaron Bryans, Clint Wilden for the call. Jack braving the conditions downstairs. Power by 1. English wins it down straight to Drew for Port Adelaide. Hands it back to Wines. Kicks around the body. Bounced up towards the attacking edge. It falconed Paul McEntee in the end. Gathered by Treloar. Clearing kick up towards Liberatore. Tried to give it back to him, but bounced off him like a bar of soap in the wet. McRae got it out. Up towards Dale. He's wrapped up by Burne-Jones. Slipped out holding the ball. Free kick to Port Adelaide, and Darcy Burne-Jones, who's looking to, I guess, retain his spot in the 22 after being the sub last week, the All-Australian backman. He'll go long.
And playing forward tonight.
Up to right half forward. Dixon somehow clunks it in the torrential rain in the pack. Immediately turns, heads to the right forward pocket, and speaking of the wet, Sam Powell-Pepper has slipped over and given it away as Ed Richards takes the uncontested mark.
It is absolutely pouring as Waitman flies, but can't quite take the mark. Alirali picks it up. Hand pass forward. Here's Rosie inside forward 50. Marked there by Richards defensively. Listen to this. Listen to this. That is the rain on the roof above us. It is bucketing down as the Bulldogs go beyond defensive 50. They kick towards centre wing. Slapped on. Norton's out after it. Up against Houston. Picked up by Lobb. Short hand pass to Treloar, to Liberatore, the 200 gamer. Hand passes over the top. Waitman assigns to Soccer at forward. It'll bounce inside the attacking 50. Getting back there, Butters goes back by hand. Clearing kick Farrell. Bounces towards centre wing. Tumbles towards the boundary line. It's out between the interchange gates for a throw in. Still Port lead by 1 point. 11 gone in the opening term in torrential rain in Adelaide.
The poor supporters who stuck around after the opening contest for the Saturday night finale. Oh, they're battling at the moment. It looks brutal out there. Toss back in. Lycett used the body to get around English and win it down to Houston. Kick was smothered. Ricochets to Bontempelli. Boy, was he good last week. Good with the body as well. Bounced off a couple. Got the kick away. High and Hope up to left half forward. Over the head of Bergman. Waiting at the back. Head over the footy. High tackle late, I reckon, there. And it was. Free kick to go the way of Dylan Williams, who's impressed so far. It's his third game. His first, I clearly remember a few years ago where he was gassed after a quarter. Came in last week. I think he had 6 intercepts, 16 disposals. Found a new role at half back. Sends it back up the broadcast wing to the logo. Front position Dixon. Bruce nearly outmarks him. Just bounced off in the wet. Gathered by Johannesson. Kicks up towards half forward. Arthur Jones caught behind. Farrell managed to knock it forward. Marshall sitting underneath it. Knocked it down to McRae, but he turned it straight back over to Marshall. Gave it to Boak. Put Adelaide inside 50. Caught behind Finlayson, but it bounced through Jones. The race is on in the goal square. Darcy Byrne-Jones can't get there in time. And it's rushed through for a minor score for Port Adelaide. 1-2-8. And the Dogs 1 straight 6.
The kick in. Been turned over. Richards, a clanger taken by Houston, who's got it at 65 from goal. Where does he put it? We'll stab it towards full forward. No mark taken. Off hands. English was down there. Trying to get to it. Rosie gathers. Hand pass bounces in front of Houston. You'll send it back inside attacking 50. Oh, Jones overran it. Might have been nudged. Finlayson, has a soccer and misses completely. Johannesson tries to knock it back. And then Rioli! The poacher's goal! He's there, hasn't hit the post on the way through. He socketed it through from the goal square. They're going to converge here, goal umpire and umpire to have a chat. It is a genuine opportunistic strike from Junior Rioli if it's to count. He just bobbed up, the ball pushed forward and pushed forward. Was it touched on the way through?
Caleb Daniel certainly thinks he's got a hand or at least a finger on it. Umpire's call was a goal, though, so it'll need to be pretty definitive. Oh, okay, it was.
They didn't mess around that time, straight away deciding that Caleb Daniel did get a touch on it as it went through. So a minor score. 1-3-9 Port, 1 straight 6 the Bulldogs, 13 gone in the opening term. Grandstand AFL.
Long ball out to the eastern side. Alier in front position wins it down at the 4 of the footy. Head over it was Richards and has received a free kick. So he'll have it at right half back for the Dogs. Just getting worse out there in terms of the conditions. It's actually getting hard to see on the outer side purely because there's so much rain coming down. The Dogs head up to right half forward. Bontempelli gets a clean run at it. Takes it on the chest in front of the pack. Turns. There's not a lot ahead of him. He'll go towards the scoreboard pocket. Waitman's in a one-on-one with Burton. He was wide enough that he could run into it right on the boundary line and pull it in on the tightest of angles. 20 out.
Bontempelli already creating a few headaches for Ken Hinkley and the Port Adelaide coaching staff. 6 disposals.
Tough conditions, but that's where you see the cream really rise to the top, I think, and he certainly fits into that category, as we know. A couple of really clean pickups, making smart decisions.
They've missed him so far this year. 36 goals last season. The check side from Waitman across the face. Can't squeeze it through. Minor score on the right-hand side. 1-1-7 the Western Bulldogs. Put Adelaide 1-3-9. 15 minutes played in the first term on Grandstand AFL.
I'm a bit worried about Jack Paquetta downstairs. Did he bring scuba gear for tonight? How you going down there, Jack? What's it like? We'll come to you in just a second as Port move it beyond defensive 50. Kick Bounces its way towards the boundary line. Oh, Marshall came in from the side. Scott knew all about it too. They were happy to see the ball over the boundary line for a throw-in. Is it any better where you are, Jack?
Not particularly. Now it's coming straight into me for some reason. The wind shifted around a bit. But, look, I brought the wet weather pants, but I don't think they're going to help.
No. Needed the full scuba kit down there, the wet weather gear. Free kick's been spotted from the throw-in. It's going the way of Rory Lobb. He'll have it on the logo. By the way, did see a replay just a moment ago. Lysette had both arms around English for the reason for the free kick earlier on, and the Bulldogs' only goal so far. Kick towards right half forward. Bulldogs work it inside their forward 50. Drew under pressure, threw it on the boot. It'll bounce in the right back pocket, tumble towards the boundary line. The umpire will say we'll ball it in. Right decision. There were players in that vicinity. He was under pressure, and under these conditions, surely you have to give players a bit of leeway.
That's right.
Absolutely.
A little bit more lenience for the players in these conditions tonight.
2-point ball game, Port in front, 16 gone in the first.
Lobb wins it down, but it spilled to the back. On Francis, caught in the tackle, couldn't dispose of it cleanly. Boak's there to assist. Clearing kick up towards centre wing, western side. Bounced off the feet of Jones, out towards Wines. Diving handball out to Rioli, who looked wide. Good composure to Rosie. Heads towards the 50. There's no one inside the arc. Marshall has to go back. Dropped it. Back with the flight. Socket it centrally. Went through McEntee. Dixon leaves it for Rioli, who charges in. Bounces off Bruce. Daniel can gather for the Bulldogs. His handball in hope. Coming through Dersma may have been cleaned up by Richards. He has. Free kick to the power youngster. 45 out. Slight angle to the right.
And great composure here from Rioli on centre wing. Just that ability to look up, spot that free player laterally rather than just banging the ball long, and they got a cleaner inside 50 entry.
Xavier Dersma decides to play on. He hands it off. Long bomb from Farrell. He's got a big boot. We know that, but this time he's not accurate. Minor score to the left-hand side. 1-4-10 the power. The Western Bulldogs 1-1-7 as we approach the 17-minute mark.
3-point lead to Port Adelaide. Mason Johannesson, Norm Smith medalist from 2016, stabs it short to Bruce, who marks and plays on by hand as Johannesson runs past him. Right back pocket, moves out towards Richards. Just shy of centre wing, will kick towards right half forward. Lob against the Lear. It's brought to ground. Lob couldn't mark. He picks it up, tackled by two Port players to the ground at right half forward. About 13 degrees, cold conditions, wet. The ponchos are out in big numbers here over the Port Adelaide fans. English wins the tap. Straight down the throat, though, of Bergman. He'll kick towards the outer wing. Trying to hack it forward again. O'Brien socketed it off the ground. Wines under pressure. His kick didn't go too far forward, and that's a shocker. Up in the air. Still bouncing around again. Oscar Baker wouldn't have been thrilled with that at all. Still there to be won. Good attack on the football came from Dixon to Drew. Couldn't get boot to the ball. On the ground, Johannesson. It's sloppy, understandably so, considering the conditions. Emerging with it is Butters. Kicks deep inside forward 50. Only one player was back there, marking over his left shoulder, Liam Jones for the Bulldogs. And then he picks up a 50 as well. He'll be brought into the middle of the ground. They're encroaching. Umpire contact. What's the reason for it here? Just not stepping back, Marshall. Kick goes inside forward 50. Lobs out. Can't mark. Spills down to Alir. Try to get a hand pass away. His head over at Scott. Came to Treloar. Now to Artie Jones. Kicks around the body. He didn't quite have the purchase he would have liked. And then McKenzie got shoved over by Hannon.
Lucky Port Adelaide fans not happy.
Yeah, after what they saw just a moment ago, thought probably with consistency they should have got a free kick. The ball's moved into the left back pocket, and Finlayson has it for the power.
A game of behinds at the moment since the rain set in. Finlayson heads to Butters. Kick was poor. He just dinked it towards the square. Nonchalant. Johannesson came across to cut it off. McRae sandwiched between two. Handball came out from Treloar. Back to Johannesson, who's wrapped up by Wines. Messy exit there from the power.
Yeah, sloppy from Butters.
Good to see Johannesson back behind the ball. Josh, I think that's where he, Norm Smith medalist, that's where he plays his best footy.
Off the ruck contest, Treloar high into the 50. Waitman's battling with Burton again. Neither got to it. Charging out, Hannon lost it. Burton can gather. Got it back. McKenzie check side exit as it bounces towards Rioli. He paddled it towards Wine, slipped straight through his hands. Got it on the second bite to Rioli. Now Horne-Francis out to Butters. Clearing kick through the centre square. Bounces clean bowl Dixon. Hard to hold on to this footy at the moment. Gathered by Duray. Handball out to English for the Dogs. Geez, sold Bruce into a bit of trouble. Had four power players around and he gave it to him. Lost it. Picked up by Rosie. Weaves through Liberatore, which is hard to do, but then drops the footy. It's an absolute bar of soap. Head over at English. Couldn't gather. Drew can. Gets it to Finlayson. Short kick to centre half forward. Hits Dixon. Port Adelaide looking for another inside 50. Can it be a clean one by their talisman? Usually you'd have the distance, but in the wet, I don't think he wants to kick this one, so he'll hand it off. Picked up by the cannon. Trent McKenzie heads for home. Into the right forward pocket. Nearly taken back with the flight. Burn-Jones can gather and snap from the tight angle. Beautiful finish. It was messy, but he delivered when it mattered. Port Adelaide 2-4-16. The Dogs 1-1-7. Time on in the first on Grandstand AFL. Your experts Josh Franco and Luke Ball.
We're just looking at Darcy Burn-Jones. He's in unfamiliar territory. He started the game forward. He traditionally been known as that attacking, running halfback flanker. Was the sub last week, came on and did have an immediate impact against Sydney, and again has found himself starting this game forward. I've actually really liked his first 20 minutes of this game. He's had 4 disposals. He's just kicked that goal. He's applying a lot of pressure and he's having a real influence on the game. I like the move.
If it sounds sloppy, it is, but with good reason. The conditions just so challenging. The ground itself looks an absolute picture, but the rain has continued pretty much from the very beginning and got worse throughout. As English wins the tap to start, umpire spots a holding decision. It'll come back for the Bulldogs. They'll have it in the middle of the ground. Bontempelli from the centre circles. Kicks into the forward pocket, left forward pocket, stretching English, tried to win it down. It spilled down to Houston for Port. Picked up the middle of the ground. McKenzie marks on the commentary edge of the centre square. Wines, poor disposal wanted. Burton turns it over. Bulldogs had numbers. Daniel tried to hand pass it away to Duray. Getting in the way was Wines again. Port was given a free kick, taken high. They'll play on quickly towards right half forward. Going up was Liam Jones, or Bruce rather. Dropped the mark, spilled out to Pal Pepper. Their first goal kicker wheels around from right half forward, tries to send it towards Marshall. Liam Jones went, couldn't get there. Marshall picks it up off the ground for Port. Centres the football and finds McKenzie. Leading towards goal. From centre half forward, he takes the mark. He's pretty much right in front. He'll put boot to ball from 30 out.
Just capitalising on a couple of Dogs' mistakes here across the wing. I think a few players, when in doubt, it's got to go on the boot tonight, Josh. And a couple of trying to invent handballs led to the turnover, and then Josh Bruce. I'm not sure if the lights got in his eyes or he wasn't sure whether to take the ball on his hands or on his chest, but dropped a sit-up, led to this shot at goal.
1 goal, 1 for the season. He's kicked his second. He's kicked Port's third of the night. Puts his name on the goal kickers list. Jed McKenzie. Port Adelaide have 3. They move to be 3-4-22. The Western Bulldogs are 1-1-7. A lead of 15 points at the 23-minute mark of the opening term. Grandstand AFL on ABC Radio, Sport Digital, and of course now streaming on the ABC Listen app. Just look for the AFL button. Our experts, Luke Ball and Josh Franco.
Yeah, Clint, we spoke about Port Adelaide's inconsistency in the contested ball in the first 3 or 4 weeks of this season. At the moment, the numbers, they're looking really positive. Ken Hinkley will be really pleased with this. 36-28, so they're plus 8 in contested possessions, and their tackle count, their pressure around the ball has been outstanding. They're leading the tackle count 18-8 at this point in the game.
Tossed up in the middle, English again early, but overflew the ball in a way. Stayed down Lycett, who won it down. Exit comes the way of Butters, caught in the Daniel tackle, got boot to ball, bounced almost off the face of Treloar. Now Jones becomes the tackler on Drew. Messy footy at the moment. It's hard to watch, but Port Adelaide seem to be getting the better of the Dogs so far as Butters bangs it on the boot up to the eastern side. It bounces through the logo and Pal Pepper. Johannesson's tackled by Rioli over the boundary line. It'll be tossed back into play in front of the Max Bashir stand. The Power by 15 at the moment. Managed to chat to Josh Carr in the build-up to this contest about Ollie Wines. He's been quiet by his standards. Mentioned he's a little underdone, but building nicely. 9 disposals already in the opening term.
Thrown back in. Goes over the back. Taken, though, by Horn Francis for Port. Kicks inside attacking 50. Spoilt one down there by Bruce. Came out to the side. Great tackle from Rioli. Wraps up his opponent holding the ball. He got Dale. Couldn't get rid of it. And Junior Rioli can have a shot if he likes from about 48 out. Tied up against the boundary.
Another player from Port Adelaide who's been a little bit inconsistent in the first part of the season. He's lining up for his 5th disposal, and again his pressure has been outstanding in their forward 50.
Yeah, worth its weight in gold, isn't it?
Yep.
Forward 50 tackle, holding the ball. Tough kick this, but he's looked pretty sharp tonight, hasn't he? Every time he's got the ball.
Here he comes. Boots just crossed the 50. Kicks on its way. Won't quite have the carry. Spills down on the behind line. Dixon tries to get it. Sensibly, Bontempelli just takes it across the line. There are enough players around that. Never going to be an issue. Rushed behind. 3-5-23 Port. 1-1-7 the Bulldogs. 25 gone in the first.
Ed Richards plays on. Pops it to Giray. One of their 4 inclusions, who races up to left half back and heads through the western side. I don't know where he was trying to get to. There was no one ahead of him but power players. 4 to choose from. And in the end, it's taken by Williams, who goes inside to Butters. Up towards the 50 again. Front position English won it down. Now tackled by Dixon. Hard footy. McRae won it out. Bounced it off the chest of Bruce. Got it back to Richards. Off a step. Looked to clear and only went as far as Butters. Called to play on and he gives it straight back. Bit of volleyball between the attacking 50 for the power, I should say. But it is the Western Bulldogs who have the pill through Tim English.
Just dropped behind the ball for a couple of minutes here, Tim English. Just under the pump a bit. Ball being played in Port's front half. Just trying to steady the ship for the Dogs.
Comes to McRae, who marks beyond defensive 50. He'll kick towards a pack. Commentary wing. Up is Norton from the side. The astronaut flying in the wet conditions. Drags in the football. Good mark. McRae runs by. Receives the hand pass and he looks to put it inside forward 50. Big chance here for a fly from McKenzie. Has he been taken high? He was. Got one across the chops. High contact. He'll have it in the right back pocket for Port. They lead 3-5-23 to the Bulldogs. 1-1-7. 26 gone in this opening term.
McKenzie heads to right half back for the power. Tim O'Brien wins it down in the contest. Scott kept it in play just on the paint. Handed it back to O'Brien. Heads inside 50. Lob had 2 to beat his sandwich. There's a whistle on the play for a hold. It's going Lob's way. Free kick Western Bulldogs. 35 out, 45-degree angle to the left.
Geez, they've been hot on marking contest infringements, haven't they, early in this first quarter, which is okay as long as they're consistent across the night.
Fremantle's leading goal kicker last season. 3 so far for the year for the Dogs. Rory Lobb starts just outside the 50. It'll be a short approach of a couple of steps. Plenty of power. They just can't get it through. A minor score on the left-hand side. The Western Bulldogs 1-2-8. Port Adelaide 3-5-23 as we approach quarter time on Grandstand AFL.
Just a size difference there, wasn't it, Josh? We know that with McKenzie and Aliir on Lobb and Norton, the challenge is going to be, can they get it down there enough to one-on-ones?
It goes beyond defensive 50 towards right half back. It's off the hands of Dixon and goes over the boundary line, which is where we find Jack Buchetta. Jack.
Aliir in a bit of discomfort at the moment, dislocating his finger. The doctor just trying to put it in on the sideline there. It's not too pleasant, especially in this cold, rainy weather.
I understand that. Not pleasant at any time. The throw-in comes down here, taken by Dersman, tackled immediately by McRae. Umpire will throw it aloft again. Lice it against English. Neither got a touch. McRae got a hand pass away for the Bulldogs. Goes on to Bontempelli, just spun away from Powell-Pepper. Had him in his sights. Bulldogs get it, and they kick it through Giray high and up towards left half forward. Leaping in the air, English has been paid the mark right up against the boundary line. That was tight. Puts it into the left forward pocket. No mark taken. Spilled down to Aliir, who sends it beyond defensive 50 as the siren sounds for quarter time. Tough in these conditions. The rain, while it has eased from the torrential rain we had at about the 10-minute mark, it has persisted throughout the term. Port Adelaide, they lead 3-5-23 to the Western Bulldogs 1-2-8. And the goal kickers for Port, Powell-Pepper, Burne-Jones and McEntee, while for the Western Bulldogs, their one goal coming from Tim English. Port Adelaide by 15 points wherever you are on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and streaming on the ABC Listen app. This is Grandstand AFL.
ABC Listen. It's hard not to love Bluey. Whatever your age, it's the biggest little show on earth. Yeah! But have you ever wondered what goes into making an episode? Well, there's a new podcast called Behind Bluey that takes you right behind the scenes. Each week you'll hear from the show's creator, Joe Brum, and his creative team, explaining exactly how all the magic is made. The new podcast, Behind Bluey, only on the ABC Listen app.
You're listening to the AFL Gather Round
Grandstand AFL.
on radio
ABC Sport Digital.
and now streaming every match on the ABC Listen app.
Bruce under real pressure, tackled and holding the ball. They want to play the advantage. Powell Pepper snaps around the body and he kicks the first. Powell Pepper pounced and he kicks the first. Lob, uncontested grab. Burton couldn't get there quickly enough. He's just shy of centre wing for the Bulldogs. Kicks in the direction. Waitman is up! Lovely fly towards left half forward. Use Farrell as the step ladder. Listen to this. That is the rain on the roof above us. It is bucketing down.
Picked up by the cannon. Trent McKenzie heads for home. Into the right forward pocket. Nearly taken back with the flight. Burnt Jones together and snap from the tight angle. Beautiful finish. It was messy, but he delivered when it mattered.
Grandstand AFL at Adelaide Oval, the second of our double-header games here tonight as Gather Round continues in South Australia. Earlier today, Essendon too good for Melbourne. The Bombers by 27 points, 15-14, 104 to Melbourne, 11-11, 77. While in Mount Barker, a thumping win for the Brisbane Lions, 22-20, 152 by 75 points over North Melbourne, 12-5, 77. Game we're currently watching. It's been wet. Rain has eased just slightly again, which is good news for everybody, players and spectators. Put Adelaide lead by 15 points. Let's find out what our experts have made of it. It'll be tough out there. Luke Paul, Josh Franco.
Yeah, well, look, I've actually, again, putting my Port Adelaide hat on, really liked their ability to win the contested ball and their tackle count. So just from a numbers perspective, they're plus 10 in the tackles and they're plus 6 in contested possessions. And as we spoke about throughout that first quarter, that's been an area where they've been very inconsistent. So in terms of what Ken Hinkley and the coaching staff at Port Adelaide would have been demanding, especially in these conditions, they've actually executed that pretty well in that first quarter.
Yeah, and it's been a nice even spread too, hasn't it? I mean, Butters has had 11 possessions. Wines has responded with 9. The conditions certainly suit him. Houston 6 and McKenzie 5, and then a pretty even spread after that. But in terms of those two numbers in particular, that tackle count, that's, you know, given the conditions, obviously, that's the order of the day. So that is a pleasing start from Port's point of view. Other than that, it was reasonably even, wasn't it, across the quarter there. Probably that 5 to 10 minute period through the middle where Port controlled field position, were able to get the ball forward into space, either create a turnover. We saw, you know, a couple of shots on goal directly from tackles, from forward pressure. And then Todd Marshall, obviously a really clever centering ball as well. So it just looked a little bit more dangerous going forward. We spoke at the end of that quarter then about the undersized Port defenders, and particularly if it clears up a little bit, the Dogs can get more and more ball to an isolated key forward. They certainly have a size advantage there. We've seen 2 free kicks given away in that front 50 for the Bulldogs. So, you know, hard slog obviously in that first quarter. Good start from Port given the way they've been starting in recent times. But they'll need to reset again and go again. It's just going to be one of those nights where they just have to roll up their sleeves and get dirty.
And if you look at both ends of the ground in terms of the forwards, and those small forward players become so important in these conditions, because if the ball's kicked in long, invariably when the ball's wet and slippery, it's going to come to ground, or you're going to get a contest and it'll come to ground. So those small players for Port Adelaide, Rioli, Powell Pepper, Burn Jones, become critical for their success tonight.
With all the numbers, Aaron Bryans.
The Dogs with more possessions over the Power by 8, 94 to 88, but they've turned it over more, 29 to 20. The inside 50 count favouring Port Adelaide by 1, 16 to 15, but their efficiency inside 50 is significantly better. So 50% Port Adelaide to the Dogs, 27%. The hit-outs going Port Adelaide's way, 10 to 5. The clearances to the Dogs, 11 to 7. The contested possession count, which has been a big talking point for Port Adelaide, 42 to 35 their way. Uncontested possession favouring the Dogs, 55 to 42, although the rain seems to have departed for now, so maybe they can start to play the brand they're after, the Western Bulldogs.
And even looking at the kicks and handball ratio, Port Adelaide have had 63 kicks that quarter with 25 handballs. Western Bulldogs 55 and 39. So they are still looking to play their own natural style of game and get the ball flicked around.
When I look out to the cathedral, Aaron, I can still see the rain tumbling down.
It's a little mist, isn't it?
Yep. It's still, I won't say it's bucketing, It's continuing. It's persisting would be the best way to put it. Butters has had it 11 times. Bontempelli and Richards, the leading disposals for the Bulldogs, with 9 apiece. 14 of the 22 Port players have laid a tackle, which was something I've got no doubt they'd be thrilled of in the Port Adelaide coaches box. And they've only conceded the 5 free kicks to the Bulldogs 7. Another major talking point about how many free kicks Port has been given away. They're in an unwanted category. They're number one by a long way.
And these conditions is conducive for players being a little bit overzealous in the contest.
A lot of upsides for Port. How do the Bulldogs respond? They'll get the clearance through Bontempelli to start the second term. Hands it off to English. Kicks the Dogs inside forward 50. Punched away by McKenzie of Port. Stumbling to try and get back there. Dersma lost his footing. Got tackled by Waitman. Umpire says holding the ball.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that again.
It was tough, wasn't it? I mean, harnessing to do on a night like tonight. He's bent over and picked the ball up, especially running at speed. And he was able to do that. It was really the second tackler that came in, wasn't it, where the umpires decided that he's had enough time to dispose of it. Pretty hot on a night like tonight, but opportunity for Cody Waitman, who's certainly inserted himself in the game, hasn't he, in his first game back this year.
Took a screaming mark in the first term. Here he comes, tight angle from the left forward pocket, boots the ball from 45 out. It's just across the face. Missing to the right-hand side. Bulldogs move on to be 1-3-9. Port Adelaide remain 3-5-23. Ports leads 14 points, opening 60 seconds of the second term. Grandstand AFL, Clint Wilden in commentary alongside Aaron Bryant.
Burton unsure what to do. Finally called to play on from the defensive goal scorer. It's a heave of a kick up towards the eastern side. Marshall front position. One away from him by O'Brien. Slapped it straight towards Dersma. Rolling footy. Picked up by O'Brien again, who's caught in the tackle by Marshall. So it didn't go too far as it pinballed around left half forward for the Dogs. Here's the reset. Lycett battling with English once again. English wins it down. Straight to the path of Liberatore. He was crunched and threw it out. Free kick to Port Adelaide. And their ruck, Scotty Lycett. Contract year for him. The Premiership Eagle hands it off towards Houston. Up to right half forward. Marshall had 3 to beat. Flying late Jones. But there's a holding free kick amongst it all. And it will go the Western Bulldogs' way. Marshall is somehow offended. And he's given it away. So a free kick to O'Brien. He turns outside. Pops it on the 45. Hits up Jones. Left half back for the former Blue. He'll go long up the eastern side.
Kicks high towards the outer wing. Flying for it, English. Front position, can't mark. Houston got a hand pass out quickly. Throwing it on the boot, Wines. Kicks up into the air towards right half forward. O'Brien spoils. Spills back into the middle. Quick hands from Port. It comes from Wines and now to Palpepper. Breaks one tackle. Looks to hand it off again. They'll kick inside forward 50. Good effort here from Rosie. It'll bounce into the left forward pocket. Then seen over the boundary line. Is it deliberate? No. Thought for a moment perhaps the Bulldogs might have infringed then, not to be. They survived that decision from the umpires. All in yellow tonight with the throw-in. 50 out. And Port's attacking goal. Spun back into play again. English won it down to McRae. Throws it on the boot and kicks towards centre wing.
Up towards the logo lob. Got the hands to it. Couldn't control it. Spilled to Jones. Front and square wrapped up by Houston. Ball up to come. Marcus Bontempelli with 7 clearances already. Entered the round 4th in the league. Starting to take that next step after a couple of years of injury. English wins it down magnificently. Down the throat of McRae. Hands it off to Daniel. Here's Bontempelli again. Long ball into the 50 for the Dogs. 2-on-2. Lob caught behind Bergman. McGather's on the bounce. Hands it off to Norton, who can run into an open goal and finish. The Dogs have 2. 2-3-15. Port Adelaide 3-5-23. 4 minutes into the second term on Grandstand AFL. Your experts, all Australian midfielders, Josh Franco and Luke Ball.
He didn't get his hands on it first, Josh, but Bontempelli involved again. Well, he just looks a class above them at the moment, doesn't he? He's playing dry weather footy, and his effectiveness around the clearances. It's Ollie Wines probably who's his direct opponent, if you can say that tonight. They've spent a fair bit of time next to each other. Just needs to tighten up, because the last 2 he's been able to get out the front of the clearance, and that's when you can be really damaging and get some real penetration. And that again wasn't pretty, but the carry, I guess, getting over the contest and out the back for the Dogs to hit the scoreboard.
And I know sides and coaches are hesitant to go to a tagger, but it could be at that point with Bont now.
Going up, English won it down. Getting a hand pass away, McRae to Liberatore, back to English. Kicks from the centre circles, deep inside forward 50. Alir got away from his opponent, spills to ground to Waitman. Can't get it cleanly. Still there to be won. Getting a hand pass out. Boak might have been taken off the football, and he'll get the free kick. Spat it out eventually.
Feels like Drew's the one, isn't it? That's done those sort of run with rolls.
Definitely.
He's got the big, strong body too, so watch for that potential matchup.
And Drew's not a big possession winner either, so you wouldn't lose a lot by sacrificing his game to shut down a guy like Bontempelli.
Beyond defensive 50, had to measure it precisely and did for Wines.
Oh, yuck.
That's a horrible kick inside his centre square off the side of the boot. Not what he was wanting at all. It went straight to Jones. Artie Jones stabs it short to Norton. He has it at centre half forward. Chance to wheel around and go whack towards the goal square. Punching away. Port through Wines. Only as far as a pack of players. It's taken to ground. In amongst them, Bergman affecting the tackle for Port Adelaide. No opportunity to shovel that forward through Artie Jones. Ball up right at full forward.
Lob, front position against Lycett, won it down, but there was no one there. Gathered by Burton, who got boot to ball under pressure, was smothered as it carries over the boundary line. Left forward pocket for the Dogs. They're kicking to the Riverbank stand end in this second term. I'd love to tell you who won the toss. I'm pretty sure it was Ollie Wines, but it was the most nonchalant motion. Toss back into play. Lycett wins it down this time. Daniel was there at the 4, the footy, hands it to Bontempelli, sold some candy, then gave it off to Norton, back to McRae. Nice little chain here that finishes off with Baker. He'll retreat to Richards at centre half forward, jam it on the boot into the left forward pocket. What composure. Could have gone for home and instead lowered the eyes and hits Waitman. 25 out, 45-degree angle to the left.
Probably a classic example of the Bulldogs at their best in the contest, their ability just to hit that little 2-metre handball to shift the angle, break the game open in layer 1, and then that composure inside forward 50 was just outstanding.
Port just forgetting which leg that Ed Richards kicks off, and they really in the end overcommitted to that right side. And
not a difficult angle, but Waitman will go around the body and finish for his first of the year. Back down to a 2-point game at the Adelaide Oval. The Dogs 3-3-21, Port Adelaide 3-5-23. 7 minutes in on Grandstand AFL.
Yeah, allowed him to roll back onto the left and spot that kick, and has a really smart bit of forward craft too from Waitman to notice or to read that bit of play, really, that Richards was going to wheel back onto his left, and he found himself in plenty of space. So he's looked really good, hasn't he? He's looked really sharp off a layoff and looking like probably the most dangerous forward at the moment for the Dogs. And Ed Richards is playing a really nice game at the moment too, across half-back. That's his 10th kick, going at 80% and 300 metres gained. So that's a really effective game for him to this point.
He adds a spring to the step of the Bulldogs' first game after an adductor injury cost him the opening 4 rounds of the season. The Bulldogs win the clearance through the middle. Bontempelli straight up the middle towards full forward. Big pack up off hands. Chasing towards it, Scott elected to Shepherd, and then soccering it around. It spilled off from Drew, came back again to McKenzie. Or Williams, rather, and then he kicks McKenzie beyond defensive 50. Dixon couldn't take it. Spills in the direction of English. Just looks to slap it forward. Desperate defending coming. Wrapping up Williams, his opposite Bulldog, and taking him to ground in Scott. It's a ball up inside forward 50.
6 clearances to 1 for the quarter. A red alert here for the Port mids.
Dixon won it down. Ball pinballs around. Over the top of it was English. Couldn't pick it up. Out to the side. Trying to work onto it is Williams of the Dogs. Dersma holds it in towards him. Umpire says, I'll ball it up. Still in the left forward pocket.
Just on cue as well, Luke, it looks like Willem Drew has been given that information or instruction to go to Bontempelli and shut him down.
8 clearances for the night. The Bont, 1 down by Dixon. Not to the Powers' advantage, though. Picked up by Bailey Williams. High into the 50 for the Western Bulldogs. Lob nearly claimed it. He had it enough, apparently. It was slapped out of his hands before he hit the ground. He did get both mitts on it, but it was a fraction of a second. And they've paid the mark. 30 out, 45-degree angle to the left. I'm not sure that was there.
Well, he paid the mark. I was thinking that potentially it was an arm chop or even across the shoulder, but that's a real bit of wet weather lenience, isn't it? Anyway, got to make the most of the run they're having here, the Dogs.
Lob leans back from 40, misses to the left, much to the joy of the Power faithful here tonight. The hill's still fairly full, considering the wet. It is Port Adelaide by a point. 23 plays 22. Jack Paquetta downstairs.
Well, like he did last week at the SCG, Ken Hinkley is coaching from the dugout here down on boundary side, and you can see why the players like him. He is so animated writing every single decision.
Port head down the outer wing. Henderson looked to soccer it to his own advantage. Very clever, and then was able to gather. Threw it on the boot. That wasn't as good. He's put it out of bounds on the full. Free kick to Port just forward of right half back. Might be even a bit further than that where it went out of bounds. It did. So Horn Francis will have it standing on true centre wing. Directly opposite our broadcast position in front of the Max Bashir stand. Pauses. And kicks towards right half forward. Not a great kick. Only one player was contesting it, and up and marking's Bailey Williams for the Bulldogs. Turning it over. 1 point ball game. Port Adelaide lead. 10 minutes gone in the second term. Bailey Williams for the Dogs. Kicks back down the outer wing. Lob got a hand to it. Spilled down to Bergman. Tackled immediately. It's not coming out of there. About 2 metres in from the boundary. We'll ball it up. Port by 1 point. 11 gone, second term.
Dixon wins it down straight to Treloar, though. Hands it back to Williams, then Daniel, the two South Australians. Out to McRae on the boundary line. Off a step. Up to left half forward. McKenzie comes from behind with the big fist on lob. Forces the boundary throw in at left half forward for the Western Bulldogs. So McRae with 6 for the quarter. Ollie Wines with 4, continuing his fine form from the opening term. Tight ball game at the Adelaide Oval. Bit of a lull in the crowd. I reckon they were split 50-50 across the two games today. Dixon wins it down with both hands to no one in particular. Almost tried to take it in the end. Tackle laid on Treloar by Dersmer. It rips out towards Butters. Hands it wide to Horn Francis, who fends off Treloar with ease and then kicks up the eastern side. Bit too long for Duray back with the flight, but he did well to gather on the bounce. Hands it back to Johannesson for the Dogs. He turns it straight over. Caught in the tackle and gave it to Wines. Almost flung it out. Got it to Burne-Jones. Now Rioli can turn. Paddock in front of him. Heads towards Pepper. Did he claim it? If Lobb did, he did.
He's got it.
And the mark is paid. 15 out. Tight angle to the right in the scoreboard pocket.
Once again, terrific mark in the conditions. Slip, wet ball, and Pepper, who's actually started this game pretty well in terms of his pressure and intensity around the contest. Great contested mark, but must go back and settle Port Adelaide because it's been all the Western Bulldogs to open this second quarter.
The pressure on the wing, wasn't it? They had the outnumber there, the Dogs, and just 2 fighting against 3 were able to scrap and pressure and cause a turnover, and lovely kick to advantage from Rioli.
The light rain continues to fall. Sam Powell-Pepper, in the absence of Charlie Dixon, their runner-up leading goal kicker last year, he's continued that fine form. 6 goals so far for the campaign. Kicks from 30. Can't sneak it home. Quite wide in the end. Minor score on the left-hand side. Port Adelaide now up by 2. Game of behinds really tonight. Port Adelaide 3-6-24 to the Western Bulldogs 3-4-22, 12 minutes in.
Their first score of the quarter. Umpire has to get rid of a second footy on the ground as Richards in the left back pocket sends it towards left half back. Spilled down to Bergman. Shovels a hand pass forward. Burne-Jones gathered. Hand pass over the shoulder. It was meant for Powell-Pepper. He couldn't quite get there. Dersmer looks to work it towards the boundary line. He was surrounded by Bulldogs. It's over for a boundary throw-in.
It's got past him, didn't he, Powell-Pepper? In these conditions, you've just got to tread water a little bit. Don't leave your teammate. Stay in his vision. He saw the goals and his eyes lit up and just got past him.
Lob against Dixon. On the ruck with a touch. Spilled out in the direction of Liberatore. Gave it to Daniel for the Bulldogs. And then to Treloar, who under extreme pressure and tough wet weather conditions put it out of bounds on the full. Rosie to have it. He's about 65 from goal at right half forward for Port Adelaide, who lead by 2. 13 gone in the second.
Their reigning best and fairest heads up towards the top of the goal square. A pack awaits. Amongst it all, Lobb got both hands and swatted it towards the scoreboard pocket. Daniel was there. Hands it out to Treloar. His handball wasn't clean to Williams. Forced to tackle Drew. And it'll carry over the boundary line. Close to the attacking 50 arc for Port Adelaide. Currently with a 2-point lead. Might check in with Jack Paqueta in a moment because Todd Marshall seems to be having some problems across this second term. Tossed back into play. Lycett in front position. Put it in the path of Horn Francis. Lost it at his toes, but fights for it with Daniel. Sliding in. Rips it away almost from Liberatore, but can't control it. Johannesson with a tackle holds things up. I'm checking with Jack in a moment.
the meantime, it's thrown aloft again inside Port's forward 50. One down by Lysett, out after it, Powell Pepper. He gets to it, then loses his footing, slipped over, tackled by Bontempelli, got a hand pass away to McEntee, who's immediately met by Bailey Williams of the Bulldogs and Bontempelli, and taken across the line. Boundary throwing, right half forward. Baldry spun back in again. Lob against Lysett. Lysett with a telling tap down towards Boak. Gathered it beautifully in the right forward pocket. Oh, this would be amazing. It is. Oh, Travis Boak. Simply stunning. In terrible conditions. It's slippery, it's wet, it's horrible, but that is a thing of sheer beauty. What a goal from about 40 metres out. Goodness me, moments like that take your breath away. Port Adelaide's lead is back to 8 points. 4-6-30 to the Bulldogs, 3-4-22. In dry conditions, that would be incredible. In the wet, it's simply spectacular.
Absolutely, and well, call, Clint. That was just unbelievable. And even looking at Travis Boak's first 3 or 4 games this season, he has spent a lot more time on the wing, less midfield minutes, but again, he wound back the clock, and that was an outstanding finish.
Great kick, isn't it? Oh, 330 games. I'm not sure he's kicked too many from that pocket. That's the Eddie Betts pocket, of course, for those listening. But
I think every pocket's the Eddie Betts
pocket.
Yeah,
probably is here. You're right, Josh. Yeah, that's right. But
the most experienced player out there, Luke Ball, Travis Boak, but many feel maybe it's his last season, but he's showing that he's still got plenty to offer. In the middle, spills back towards Butters, kicked around the body low and hard towards centre half forward, bounced off Boak, out towards English, who skies it with the kick, carried about 2 metres. Waiting there was Dale, hands it off to Richards, and the Western Bulldogs head to the broadcast wing, back with the flight. Good contest made by Baker against Dersma, but Port Adelaide went out. It's a whistle anyway as Dersma tries to race away. It'll come back to Farrell. And the old Motlop number 6 certainly delivered some dazzling highlights of his own, Kane Farrell, on that booming left foot, which I think he's about to utilise here. He heads towards the 50. Dixon's got a run at it and a sit on English. Couldn't claim it. Waiting at the 4, the footy was Johannesson, but he fell with the pill. English is taken without it. Umpire saw it as well. Free kick to the Dogs' ruck at right half back. They're trailing by 8 at the moment.
It's a little bit overzealous there from Dixon.
Jackie, seeing much with Todd Marshall downstairs?
Came off with a sore knee, spent plenty of time on the bike, and was then just stuck on the sideline with the ball stuck on the eastern flank and just couldn't get on.
Port Adelaide have the ball on the wing. Williams for Port gathers and then sends it back towards Wines, hard up against the boundary. Thought he was being held. Umpire says no, we'll throw it in.
Just looking at Jamara Ugle-Hagan, Josh, and okay, it's a tough night for big forwards, we know that. Hasn't touched the footy yet. Might be an opportunity to get him up the ground a bit, get him on the wing potentially. Just got to get his hands on the footy, see if he can even lay a tackle, get himself into the game.
On the ruck, had a telling tap. Slap forward, it comes to Wines. This is disposal 15 for him. Kicks inside forward 50. At the back, trying to get to it. Oh, maybe taken a little bit high was Liam Jones. Spilled out there to Horn Francis. Moved it on beautifully. Running in towards goal and missing, though, is Butters. He put it to the right. It was at his mercy. But no, not to be under the tough conditions. Minor score, Port Adelaide now by 9 points. 4-7 plays, 3-4. 17 gone in the second.
Out to left half back. The Dogs clear. English marks, then goes inside to Treloar. Just had a quick Google to see the record for most clearances in a game, 22. Bontempelli's on 9, still plenty to play in this second term. Long ball for the Dogs up towards centre wing. Dixon back with the flight. Only had eyes for the footy. Didn't worry about who was around him.
Interesting though, he hasn't touched it in the last 6 minutes since Willem Drew has gone on to him. So good move from the coach.
That record may remain intact then. Dixon up towards right half forward. Finds Rosie. Nice little fly ahead of Johannesson. Not sure what to do with the 50 flooded. He'll pop it in anyway. Looking for Marshall. Couldn't get there in time. The footy fell straight into the arms of English. He's been good for the Dogs tonight as well. This will be disposal 13. A goal. 12 hit-outs as well.
Just covering enormous ground too. What an athlete he is, Josh. I just watched him in his last couple of minutes. He's getting back, deep back to support his defence. He charged out wide to get that release kick out of 50. Terrific young player.
English, precise kick to McRae, hard up against the boundary at left half back, kicks to the commentary wing. Ugle-Hagan couldn't mark, spilled out of his grasp. Bulldogs shovel it backwards. It comes to McRae. Now to Scott. Just shy of the wing. Kicks towards left half foot. Hannon tried to fly. Got some height. Couldn't quite bring it down. Port respond. Kick down the commentary wing. Spills there to Treloar. Turns and sent it back from whence it came towards left half forward. Ugle-Hagan. Surely that's paid the mark. It is. Got enough purchase on that. It's a good grab for him. His first of the night. Looking for his first disposal. Here he goes. 55 out. Kicks long to the goal square. He wants lob. Can't quite win it. Trying to work his way through there. Scott threw a boot at it. Picked up by Boak, who takes it professionally over the line for a rush behind. 4-7-31 Port. Bulldogs move on to be 3-5-23. 19 gone in the second term. Grandstand AFL on ABC Radio and Sport Digital. Clint Wilden alongside Aaron Bryans in commentary. Our experts Josh Franco and Luke Ball.
Trent McKenzie called to play on. He'll head long up towards the broadcast wing. Waiting one-on-one. Jones entangled with Finlayson. Last week's hero got a spoil to it. To the back, McRae's cleaned up by Rioli, who jumped into the bump. Wasn't heavy enough to do any damage, but I reckon that'll be looked at.
His head at the ground too.
Left the ground with the shoulder and collected McRae. Going to give the ball to Caleb Daniel, but that's not the man he cleaned up. Free kick to the Western Bulldogs. Forward of centre wing. The smallest man out there can certainly do plenty of damage. He heads towards the 50. Packer waits. English front position. Floated from the side. Couldn't control it. Elia clears about 5 metres to Rosie. Turns around. A hit in hope. Trying to get it towards Finlayson, who lost out against Jones. Handball inside. Hits Dale. Piercing kick to Liberatore. Calling for some options for the Dogs. He'll head inside 50. Waitman just got it over the head of Dixon. Pinpoint pass. And Cody Waitman takes it 45 out. Slide angle to the right.
So it's natural forwards sometimes playing in front instinctively, and it's amazing how many times the ball just falls into their hands, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, it's been a really, really good return to the team tonight for Cody Waitman.
Had an adductor injury in the pre-season. So as Luke Ball mentioned, his first game, the 22-year-old. Decent run in as he'll kick from the paint of 50. Beautiful kick. Has it got the distance? Yes! Carries over the pack on the line. And the Western Bulldogs bring it back down to 2 points. Waitman has 2. 4-5-29 plays 4-7-31. Time on in the second term on Grandstand AFL.
Second mark inside 50, yeah. We know he's not a high possession player, but high impact player. From his very first touch, he took a scream out here at pouring rain at half forward. He's looked the most likely, most dangerous in that front half for the Dogs. So, real arm wrestle, isn't it, this quarter? The Dogs, you'd have to say, have had the better of Port for the majority of it. Port having a good 5 minutes there, but it's turned into a real arm wrestle, which, again, given the conditions we probably expected we were going to get tonight.
Yeah.
Jack McRae's started to get moving too. Recognise that Bontempelli's getting set on now.
English wins the tap. McRae tries to soccer it forward. Sat there though for Butters to pick up. Gives it to Wines. Kicks inside the forward 50, leading out Marshall. Couldn't quite mark. Pressure came from Liam Jones. Ball spills out to the side. Lysett over the top of it. Tries to get it out. Need to work it forward to Finlayson. McEntee picks it up. He's tackled by Johannisen. Hand passes back to Marshall. Forced to backtrack. Hand pass again to Rosie. On in turn to Drew. Drew will kick towards full forward. Bounces, I think, almost off the head of Liam Jones then. Tapped down cleverly by Butters. It comes now to Farrell. 50 out from goal. Steers it back inboard. Marshall can't gather. Johannisen had it. Daniel run down by Finlayson. Spills out the side again. Port shovel it into the left forward pocket. Liberatore tries to keep it in. Not sure Baker did. Umpire said, no, it's okay. Hand pass to himself. Gathers, got a hand pass away as he was tackled. Only as far as Williams for Port. Gave it to Wines again. Now on in turn. Long kick comes from Rosie towards full forward. They come from everywhere. Flying Horn Francis couldn't mark. Spills down to English. Kicks around the body, but down the throat of Houston, who marks for Port. 47 out from goal. Slightly better than a 45-degree angle to the left of centre.
I often say too, Luke, it's easy to sit up in the commentary box when there's no pressure on you whatsoever, but that exit kick from the Western Bulldogs there just need a little bit more height, potentially more boundary. Houston found himself in the right spot and probably should go back and kick this goal.
It's in the worst possible hands, too, isn't it, from the Dogs' point of view.
Houston from right on 50. Looked pretty good off the boot. It's swinging, but not enough. Missing to the right-hand side. A minor score. 4-8-32, Port Adelaide. Bulldogs 4-5-29. 24 gone in the second.
Look to move it quickly, the Dogs, up to right half back. Marked by O'Brien. Tried to sell some candy. Wasn't being bought by Rosie. Got a kick away under pressure. Baker did well. Handball inside to McRae. Now Johannesson. Long up the broadcast wing. Norton the target. Good fly from Bergman, who got above Aaliyah to intercept in the pack. Port Adelaide with the footy. Just forward of left half back. Kicking to the northern end. Leading by 3 points at the moment. Long ball from Bergman. Back where it came from to the arc. Front position Bruce. Got a hand to it. Slapped it straight to English. Bit of a panic kick as he looked to exit, but it worked.
How good's this one?
Gee, poor Waitman was crunched there, but he did well to hold on to the footy. He's just behind the logo centre wing western side.
Tough, strong, and spectacular as well. As he moves it to O'Brien. Back into the team this week, O'Brien. He marks it right half back. First game of the season for the former Hawk. Stabs it short. Here's the 200 gamer in Liberatore. Still shy of the wing. Commentary side of the ground.
Smart. Players looking tired out there, as you'd expect. A couple of minutes to go in this half. The Dogs have had a good quarter.
Dogs look to switch. Johannesson moves it towards Bruce, who then goes down the outer side. Marked out there again by Giray. Pauses for a moment. Hard up against the boundary. 2 kicks from goal. Into the left forward pocket. Aaliyah at the back. Got a hand to it. Big pack there. Trying to work it out again was Bergman. All pinballing around. Emerging with it Norton. Hand pass over the shoulder to Ugle Hagen. Tried to get away from trouble. Only hand pass straight into Wines. Won it down. And then the Port Adelaide side kick towards the outer. Horn Francis involved in the contest. Sliding out Bruce. Looked to tap it towards the boundary line. And then taking it over was Giray. Right with him Rioli. Throw in. Outer wing. 4-8-32 Port. The Bulldogs are 4-5-29, 26 gone in the second on Grandstand AFL, ABC Radio, Sport Digital and streaming on the ABC Listen app.
Incredible call with the Willem Drew tag, Lukey, because he hasn't had a touch, Bontempelli, since he's gone to him. Toss back into play. Free kick and advantage going the way of Ollie Wines. He'll race up towards right half forward, send it into the 50. Good fly from O'Brien. Cuts it off for the Dogs. Todd Marshall failing to have an impact in this term. They look to switch. Johannesson, the Norm Smith medalist, exiting to Hannon. It was dangerous. Good rundown charge from Rosie. Made a contest, brought it to ground. Flicked back to him by Burn Jones. He lost his footing, Rosie. Just kept it in, but gave it away. Straight to O'Brien, then Johannesson. Now Hannon is run down. Had 3 options, didn't want to use them. Is tackled. It may have been in the back, but in the end they've paid holding the ball. Butters gets away with it. Immediately heads into the 50, and Darcy Burn-Jones has floated forward into the hole. He'll take the uncontested mark. 35 out, slight angle to the left.
I would say it's amazing how that happened. Luke, obviously there was a free kick played. There was a delay on the ball, yet Burn-Jones found himself free inside their forward 50 and took, as we said, an uncontested mark.
This fatigue, that'll really frustrate if this goes through, frustrate Luke Beveridge and the coaching staff.
Yep.
As I said, they've certainly had the better of the quarter and had their hands on the footy there too. They just weren't able to kill the ball with a minute to go, and this would be a real blow.
The All-Australian backman does know how to finish. Had a goal last season. Little trot, then heads in. It's low, it's hard, but it's true. 2 to Burn-Jones. And Port Adelaide move to a 9-point advantage. 5-8-38, plays 4-5-29 as we approach the 30-minute mark of this second term on Grandstand AFL.
No, I mentioned Burn-Jones throughout that first quarter with his ability to apply pressure and influence the game in that regard, but I've been really impressed with him in terms of what he's done forward of the ball, his work inside forward 50. He hasn't had a huge amount of disposals in terms of touching the footy from kicks, marks and handballs, but he has had a huge impact on this game, and he's kicked 2 goals. Almost a masterstroke from Ken Hinkley.
It's a good return, isn't it? 2 goals, and Waitman gets 2 at one end, and Darcy Burn-Jones, potentially an unlikely source, but it's a great return in his first half.
3 is the magic number. 3 and 33, depending on which way you're going. As Bontempelli is able to slap it out here in the middle to Treloar, to Dale for the Bulldogs. Stabs it short. Finds Williams. Hands it to the run of Giray. Kicks towards left half forward. And a good mark going up, Bergman. As the siren sounds for half-time. The weather for the moment has stopped. The rain, it's a little bit drier, so perhaps a better second half in terms of conditions to come. It's been a real slog for both sets of players. Port Adelaide's lead 9 points at the main break. 5-8-38. The Western Bulldogs 4-5-29. Goal kickers for Port Adelaide. 2 to Darcy Byrne-Jones and singles to Powell Pepper, Boak and McEntee. While for the Western Bulldogs, 2 to Waitman and then singles to Norton and to English. It was a 15-point advantage to Port at quarter time. The Bulldogs have cut that back to 9. They would perhaps feel it should be even closer after the way they played in that second term. Grandstand AFL on ABC Radio and Sport Digital, streaming on the ABC Listen app. Earlier today, wins to Brisbane over North Melbourne. The Lions 22-20, 152 to North, 12-5-77, while the other game, Essendon, here at the Adelaide Oval, 15-14, 104, thrashed Melbourne 11-11, 77. Let's get our experts' thoughts, though, on this game as the Oz kickers make their way out onto the ground. It's Port by 9 points. Tell us all about it, Josh Franco and Luke Ball.
Well, as we just said, Josh, a disappointing finish from the Bulldogs' point of view to a quarter which they certainly had the better of, kicking 3 goals, 3 from 10 entries. So similar entries, 3 goals, 3 to 2 goals, 3. Just that one goal late where they looked tired, didn't they? And they looked to try and control the ball, and good pressure from Port. And that's been the order of the day from them. Their pressure has certainly forced a lot of turnovers. A lot of their scores have come from those turnovers. So well done from them to hang in and kick that last goal just to give them a little bit of breathing space at half-time. But, yeah, the Dogs certainly had the better of that quarter, 34 more possessions and 14 more marks. So they were able to, and the rain certainly died off a bit, so potentially that helped. But they were able to control a little bit the ball a little bit more. Spoke about the clearance domination, the first part of that quarter, largely due to Marcus Bontempelli and Tim English, who's been superb for the Dogs. We spoke about that battle at the start of the game. He's certainly on top in the ruck for the Bulldogs. But at about halfway through the quarter, what you called it, Josh, the move came. Drew went on to Bontempelli, and it was more the damage that he was having from those clearances. They were coming out the front, weren't they? They weren't just scrubby kicks in the conditions. He was able to use his legs and get out the front and really penetrate. And two goals directly came from those clearances. So Ken thought enough's enough, and the move was made. And from then on, he found it a lot harder. And sure enough, that's what happens, doesn't it? So that was probably a pretty influential move into how the game was playing, and a bit of a momentum shift in the game.
It's interesting too. We did mention that in that second quarter before the move of Drew onto Bontempelli, but these days coaches are a little bit hesitant to have a full-blown tag, especially going into the game. And as we said, Bontempelli absolutely dominating in terms of clearance and his work around the stoppage and in that contested ball situation. He's almost unstoppable. So no doubt the discussion in the Port Adelaide coaching box was how we stop this bloke getting hold of the footy. Will Drew is clearly probably the one to go on that can match him physically, can run with him. And you're right, he did quell his influence late in that second quarter.
I thought Jack McRae lifted. He needed to, given that Bontempelli started to get some attention. That probably released him a little bit. He had a really good quarter. He had 10 possessions for the quarter, for 17 for the half. And I spoke about Tim English. He's up to 15 possessions. Well, I mean, he's really just a midfielder. After the ruck contest, he's got incredible speed and agility, and we know he's got a big tank, so he'd be a nightmare to play on, wouldn't he, for a big opposition ruckman. So he's been really impressive as well, the 15 possessions. Ollie Wines has had a lot of the footy, hasn't probably been as effective as he would have liked. It's certainly conditions that suit him. I really like Zach Butters' game. He's had 16 possessions, 10 of those contested, so he's adjusted to the conditions as well.
Going back to Bontempelli as well, Luke, if you're Beveridge and the coaching staff at the Western Bulldogs, do you roll with it a little bit longer, sucking to see how it's going? If he doesn't have much of an influence, do you then shoot him forward and say, go with me forward, Drew, if you're good enough?
I think you do. I think you've got to stick with it. Back your champ and your captain in, and just say, okay, you had a terrific first half. Now you've got a bit of. And what I did like, and I watched him for a bit. What I liked, and it's no surprise because he's a terrific leader and selfish player. At stoppages, he went and made 2-on-1s. Yep. So I think he freed McRae up a little bit. So he's recognised, okay, now it's my turn to play a bit more of the team role and potentially go and stand on a Butters or stand on a horn, Francis, and release some of my teammates. He certainly did that in the second half of that quarter, but they want the ball in his hands. There's no doubt about it. So I think the message will be to his teammates, okay, it's time to help our captain out, our leader out. They've come for him. We can, just sort of let it come to us, let it happen, or we can try and do something about it ourselves. We know he's got the ability to push forward, so he's always got that up his sleeve. I think that potentially would be a win for Port Adelaide, though, to get him out of that centre bounce. But potentially, instead of coming off, he could take Drew deep into the square and clear everyone out. If the rain holds off, he could be a bit of a headache down there as well. So it's a really fascinating subplot in this game.
Gents, have either of you dislocated a finger before?
Yeah.
What's it like? Because Aaliyah,
fun.
I mean, he looked in a lot of pain, but immediately he's back to his best footy. Hasn't faded.
No fun if you can't get it back in.
No, when they're out, they're no good. But once they're back in, they're okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
You never used to fumble, Josh. You were discarding too many fingers.
I did plenty.
It's a horrible thing to do. Having done
on a night like this, a cold, wet night, it's the last thing you need.
By the way, from Perth, we're quite often described as being the absolute capital of mullets in the country, and we do have a lot of them. But I reckon Adelaide in the next couple of years will put in a really big push, because downstairs in one or two of the Auskick games, some of the best mullets that I've ever seen been sported by 6 and 7-year-olds downstairs. It is truly a sight to behold if you take nothing else away from Gather Round. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching the kids go about their business. They're loving getting amongst it in the wet. Been loving what we've been able to see so far, this battle between Port and the Western Bulldogs, as both of them trying to pick up their third win of the season. Repeating half-time, Port lead by 9 points, 5-8-38 to the Western Bulldogs, 4-5-29. Plenty more to come. Right now, though, let's take the latest from the ABC Newsroom.
Hello, this is ABC News with David Rowlands. A man has been charged with murder after allegedly stabbing a woman believed to be his partner in Darwin last night. Staff of the Indigenous Affairs Minister Linda Burney had rendered assistance, as Lillian Rangea reports.
The ABC understands the 51-year-old victim was stabbed in a park outside the Darwin Esplanade on Friday evening just before 6 o'clock. Her final act was to seek help inside the nearby Hilton Doubletree Hotel, where Indigenous Affairs Minister Linda Burney and her staff were staying. Bystanders performed CPR, and Ms Burney says she comforted the woman's family before paramedics arrived. A 56-year-old man believed to be the woman's partner was arrested at the scene. He has tonight been charged with murder as police investigations continue.
The newlywed paramedic who was fatally stabbed outside a Sydney fast food restaurant just hours before the end of his shift has been described as a true hero. 29-year-old Stephen Tuja was on a break with his New South Wales ambulance colleagues outside a Campbelltown McDonald's when they activated a duress alarm early on Friday morning. Mr Tuja was treated at the scene before being rushed to Liverpool Hospital, where he later died. A 21-year-old has been charged with his murder. Emma Gedge, who was a union branch official with Mr Tuja when he worked as a registered nurse, has paid tribute to her former colleague.
He was full of charisma. He helped anyone who needed help, no matter what shift he was on, time of day, middle of the night shift. If you needed help, Stephen would help you.
The Japanese Prime Minister has been evacuated after an explosion was heard before he was due to make a speech at a fishing port. North Asia correspondent James Oaten reports.
A bang was heard at the Saikosaki fishing port in western Japan, where Prime Minister Fumio Kishida was due to campaign for local by-elections. Footage shows security detail pinning down a man as bystanders run away from the chaos. Local media is reporting one man was arrested. White smoke was seen after the explosion. The Prime Minister was evacuated and is unharmed. There are no reports of injuries. James Oaten, ABC News, Tokyo.
The Victorian government has not confirmed reports that some major rail projects could be put on pause due to budgetary pressures. The government won't say if the Airport Rail Link or the Geelong Fast Rail could be delayed, but did flag the forthcoming state budget would take into account higher interest rates and inflation. Deputy Opposition Leader David Southwick says the Andrews government is struggling to manage money and major projects.
These two projects, whether it be Geelong Fast Rail and the Airport Rail Link, are must-dos, not a maybe that this government is now looking like simply because they've run out of money.
The father of the 3 Beaumont children who went missing in Adelaide in the 1960s has died aged 97. Candice Prosser reports.
The disappearance of Jane, Anna and Grant Beaumont became one of Australia's most notorious unsolved mysteries. The children, aged 4, 7 and 9, never returned home from Glenelg Beach on Australia Day 1966. Despite detectives working on the case for decades, the crime has never been solved. A funeral notice published today says Grant Alfred Beaumont, loved father of Jane, Anna and Grant, has been reunited in heaven. He died on the 9th of April, aged 97.
US President Joe Biden says he's planning on running for a second term. Speaking to reporters at the end of his trip to Ireland, Mr Biden says he'll announce his re-election campaign relatively soon. The 80-year-old president has long hinted he wants to run again, but so far there's been no formal announcement. Legal challenges are expected to a complete ban on the popular video sharing platform TikTok, now awaiting the governor's signature in the US state of Montana. Larry Buttrose has the details.
Immediately after the Montana legislature approved the ban, TikTok complained it was a case of egregious government overreach. The Chinese company also reiterated its claim it does not share users' data with the government in Beijing. Montana would become the first US state to place a total ban on the app across all devices. The new laws would fine TikTok if it tried to continue operating in the state, and also fine third-party platforms such as Google if they don't remove it. A TikTok spokesperson says the matter will now be pursued in the courts.
And Melbourne City and the Central Coast Mariners have played out a 1-1 draw in the A-League men's competition match in Gosford.
For extreme entertainment, stream comedy whenever you like on ABC iView. That's so cool. Extreme feel-goods with Ghosts, Ronnie Cheng, international student, and Summer Love.
Never hold back, kids.
Extreme funnies from the Melbourne International Comedy Festival.
That means a lot.
And extreme good times with Starstruck, Peep Show, and Fisk.
Why would you say that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's Extreme Comedy Gold.
So cool.
And you can stream it all for free on ABC iView.
You're listening to the AFL Gather Round
Grandstand AFL.
on radio,
ABC Sport Digital.
and now streaming every match on the ABC Listen app.
Here's Bontempelli again. Long ball into the 50 for the Dogs. 2-on-2. Lob caught behind Bergman. McGather's on the bounce. Hands it off to Norton, who can run into an open goal and finish. Baker, he'll retreat to Richards at centre half forward. Jam it on the boot into the left forward pocket. What composure. Could have gone for home, and instead lower the eyes and hits Waitman. Not a difficult angle, but Waitman will go around the body and finish for his first of the year. Lycett with a telling tap down towards Boat. Gathered it beautifully in the right forward pocket. Oh, this would be amazing. It is. Oh, Travis Boat. Simply stunning. In terrible conditions. It's slippery, it's wet, it's horrible, but that is a thing of sheer beauty.
The 2023 AFL season.
On radio,
ABC Sport Digital.
and now streaming on the ABC Listen app.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear from you wherever you are around the nation. What are you made of Gather Round so far? Have there been any highlights? Anything you want to add? Any suggestions? Should it stay in Adelaide for next season? Aaron Bryans would certainly be saying yes. And to be honest, as much as I'd love to have this in Perth, I'm pushing for Perth 25, 26. Adelaide deserves another crack at this. It's been tremendous so far. You could have done better with the weather, though.
Oh, sorry about today. I'm sure it'll get a bit better tomorrow. I've got a highlight from today.
Yep.
Went to Mount Barker this morning for SA Grandstand, but had about 6 hours to kill in the middle before tonight. Got to ride the zip line across the River Torrens today.
Oh,
it was a good 90-minute wait, but it was worth it for the 30 seconds of speed and quickness. It threw me off a little bit. I was a bit shocked about how fast I went across the river. So.
And I understand that you were in a bit of a spin on the way across too. Is that true?
I was trying to take a nice video for socials, and the way that they pushed me, I was just spinning the whole way down. It was chaos.
I'd be keen to have a go, but there's probably a weight limit on it, so that would rule me right out, wouldn't it? Oh, what a terrible shame that would be. Half-time here, put Adelaide by 9 points. Port 5-8-38, the Western Bulldogs 4-5. 29. Fran from Melbourne sends us a text, enjoying the call. I'm a Pies supporter, so I'm going for Port this game. That's interesting, Fran. That's not normally how things work. Normally Collingwood supporters cheer for anyone other than Port Adelaide. They aren't wearing the prison bars tonight, it should be said. I like Ken Hinkley, says Fran. Luke, I want the Pies to win against the Saints. He's hoping.
Yeah, going to be a great end to the round, isn't it, tomorrow? I just said to you off air there, Clint, hopefully the grounds, no one's going to be working harder than the ground staff over this weekend, are they? With the rain today and tonight, the double header today and then the double header tomorrow. And as we look down, there's a bit of gardening going on out there, isn't there? Which is good to see, mate. From up here, it looks a picture. Hopefully the rain holds off overnight, and then of course we've got Geelong West Coast tomorrow, and then the big one to round out the round, Collingwood St Kilda. Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating contest, that one. I think both teams will really be tested in the way they're playing. Obviously the Saints haven't really put a foot wrong, have they, in the first month of the year, and Pies on the rebound after coming back down to earth against the Lions last week. So looking forward to that one too.
Been waiting for, I reckon, 3 weeks for Collingwood versus St Kilda. It is a great way to finish. Gather round here, and I'm glad that those in charge said, no, it's going nowhere. The contract is we're bringing it across. It deserves to be played here. Despite I understand the frustrations of St Kilda and Collingwood supporters, it's the right thing to do.
Bully, Victorian, obviously. Outside of Victoria, there's always the talk of Vic bias, and they're in their own bubble and they don't understand the rest of the country. Were you in the camp that Collingwood St Kilda needed to stay here?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, clearly when they scheduled the game, they wouldn't have thought that it was 1v2 or as good as or thereabouts. But no, I don't. It wouldn't have made any sense to pull one game out of the 9 back to Melbourne. I think they'll get a full house here tomorrow. They'll get 50 odd here tomorrow. The atmosphere will be great. Plenty of Collingwood supporters have made their way across. I bumped into their CEO downstairs before. They did a function last night, I think, and had a packed house at training yesterday at Glenelg, and likewise the Saints. They've had plenty travel across as well. So adds a bit of uniqueness to the game. It's on a neutral field.
You've been surprised by St Kilda's resurgence?
I have, yeah. I think everyone has. Potentially even the coaching staff have. What I think they're healthy at the moment. And I've done the last 3 games because they've been Saturday night games. They're starting to build a really distinguishable brand, and clearly Ross has brought back that focus on defence and team defence. They're really fit. They're really hard running. I think that's what stood out the last 3 weeks. They've just completely outrun, or run the other team in a submission over the course of the 4 quarters. And they found a few players. A lot of talk was around who wasn't there, especially in that front half with King and Memory. But they found a player like Owens, who's looks like he's played 100 games, let alone 10, and Caminiti, and they're getting really good even contribution across the ground. So, I think the last couple of weeks have shown that it's not a fluke, and they'll go in feeling pretty confident about tomorrow's game as well.
So that's the final of the 3 games to wrap up. Gather round. We'll start Geelong versus West Coast here. GWS and Hawthorn will be at Norwood, and then Collingwood and St Kilda to wrap things up here at Adelaide Oval. Let's turn our focus back to this one. Both teams warming up downstairs. Put Adelaide lead by 9 points. What are all the other numbers? Tell us. Aaron Bryans.
The Dogs still leading the disposal count, Clint, by 40, 188 to 148. But again, their turnovers are struggling at the moment in the wet. So at the moment they're 50 to 39. Their efficiency inside 50 was much better. So it improved after the first term to 40%. So 10 shots from 25 inside 50s to Port Adelaide's 48%. 13 shots from 27 inside 50s. The other stats, the hit-out count fairly even. Scott Lysett winning 18 to 17. The clearances, obviously the Dogs' way, because Marcus Bontempelli was dominating with 10 before he got tagged by Willem Drew. So the Dogs lead 21 to 14 in that area. Contested possession, again, led by Port Adelaide 75 to 65. A stat they've struggled with in 2023, but beat the Swans by 8 last week. And now leading the Dogs here at Adelaide Oval and leading on the scoreboard by 9.
National Rugby League, couple of results for you. The Warriors beat North Queensland by 8 points and the Panthers by 1 over Newcastle. The Broncos currently lead the Gold Coast Titans by 22 points, 67 minutes gone in that game. About to get this back underway. Ollie Wines, 18 disposals. He's been leading the way. Hannison and McRae, 17 apiece for the Western Bulldogs.
I like that ruck battle. I don't know, stats aren't everything, but we've spoken about English, 15 possessions. 13 hit-outs, 4 inside 50s and a goal. Scotty Lysett just the one possession. He's had 12 hit-outs, and to the eye, he's had more impact than that.
Yeah.
But it's been a pretty dominant performance, hasn't it, from the big Bulldogs ruckman?
Yeah. Neither side's activated their sub yet. Mead and McLean wait to see when they will be required. Ball in the hand of the umpire. Second half about to get underway. Port lead by 9 points. Here's Aaron Bryans.
Lysett and English combined. Lysett wins it down. Looked for Horn Francis. Couldn't control it. The ruck for the Power tries to charge through but forces it into the hands of Treloar, who gave it to Liberatore. Heads towards the 50. Not really sure he was trying to get to. Bergman should have taken it sliding in. It popped straight out. Jamari Ugle-Hagan hands it off. Now to the top of the goal square. Alir takes the intercept mark in the defensive goal square for the Power and then pops it short to the scoreboard pocket. And the uncontested mark taken there by Dersma. Willem Drew side by side Marcus Bontempelli to start this third term.
It goes beyond defensive 50. One down by Liberatore. Free kick spotted. It's going the way of the Bulldogs. They'll take the advantage. Treloar into the right forward pocket. Alir is up and takes the mark defensively for Port. He'll move it short to Farrell. Still in the left back pocket. 9 points as Port score. Opening 50 seconds of the third.
If you are just joining us, Alir had a dislocated finger in the opening half, playing like it never happened. Out towards the eastern side, it bounces off the pack. Tim O'Brien touched it, and now Dixon's wrapped up by a couple. Will get a ball up.
Just one player as well for Port Adelaide that needs to start imposing himself in the game is Horn Francis. Just the 6 disposals to half-time.
A little bit of afters between Bruce and Dixon, who've been glued together for most of the night. Lysett wins it down straight to Liberatore again. He's trying to barge through the ball, but he can't get through Scott Lysett, who dumps him in the end. Free kick to the Western Bulldogs. The tackle looked good until the last possible moment. Liberatore pops it short to Treloar, just the required 15. Wanted to give it to Daniel. In the end, gives it to Liberatore, then Daniel. Off a step at the attacking edge of the square. The torp towards English, who flies. Alir at the last moment from the side got a fist in. He's holding the line at the moment for the Power and holds things up with a tackle. We're about 15 out straight in front.
Just took off Tim English. His opponent, his opposition ruckman, gave the free kick away, was standing on the mark. He just put his head down, took off and nearly took the mark inside 50.
Lob wins it down to English, kicks straight into Mackenzie's chest. Port player looked to slap it out. Boat over the top. Daniel holds it into him. What will the umpire do? He'll ball it up right in front of the glorious old scoreboard here at the Adelaide Oval. The right forward pocket. What can the Bulldogs do here? Norton tries to win it down. Waitman looks to sock it off the ground. Remarkable. Oh, he can do everything. First game back, he's in everything. Corey Waitman gets his third. Surely that's a goal. They're going to converse here to send it upstairs. Was it touched on the way through? He just hacked it forward, socketed it off the ground. There were players all around it when he got boots a ball. I'm not sure. He glanced upstairs. Has it taken the slightest flick off a Port shin on the way through?
What's the umpire's call?
Goal. So yeah, I can't see how that'll be overturned.
No.
Spoke about it before the game. He just makes things happen, doesn't he? Doesn't need to touch the footy too much to have an impact on the game. I've really missed him in the first 4 weeks of the year, and we think that this will be his third.
He's just one of those players that just able to create something out of nothing, isn't he?
Mackenzie's left leg is the question, but the ball doesn't seem to deviate in the way that it's spinning towards goal.
Sufficient evidence to see if the ball is touched by the Port Adelaide defender or not. Decision on the scoreboard.
So it is a goal. What a clever goal it was as well. Umpire's call on the screen. He has got 3 now. Cody Waitman. First game of the season, Cody Waitman's got 3 goals. They've all been different, and you can chuck in a stunning mark as well. How good for the Western Bulldogs. They're back to within 3 points now. Port Adelaide 5-8-38. The Bulldogs 5-5-35. Port by 3. 4 gone in the third.
Just those small forwards as well are worth their weight in goal, particularly at stoppage inside their forward 50. Waitman started on the attacking side, the defensive side of the stoppage and just blitzed through and created something out of nothing. Outstanding play.
Earlier today it was the Bombers who charged home to win by 27. Can the Dogs do the same in the second half here at the Adelaide Oval? They're a goal away. Tossed up. English flies. Lysett again stays down, wins it straight to Bontempelli. Handball out to Treloar. Got it back to his skipper, who's run down by Drew. stayed with him the entire passage. Ball up to come. Still in the centre square, but Port Adelaide's attacking half.
Rosie outstanding there. Great pressure.
Lycett gets away from English, takes the footy and hands it to Horn Francis. Heads towards the left forward pocket. Dixon coming out. Takes the chest mark. 48 out. He'd have the distance now that the rain seems to have subsided. So he'll go back. The man on the mark just behind the pain of 50. Charlie Dixon goalless last week. Would love one tonight. It's a monster kick. Goes all the way and just on the line it's punched back in. Fell nearly to the feet of Boak, but cleared by Johannesson. Up towards a pack on the pain of the defensive 50 for the Dogs. Bruce thought he took it at 2 bites. The whistle stayed away and eventually was blown to call a ball up. All you reckon that was clear cut?
It's stiff there, I reckon, Josh Bruce.
Our fans find their voice off the fingertips of English, bursting through. Liberatore gathers, kicks around the body into the middle of the ground. Alir brings it to ground, then his hand pass stolen by Norton. Hand pass off to Ugle-Hagan. The big don't argue on the logo out of side. Comes to Treloar, back to Liberatore, now to Daniel. Quick chain of hand passes. He kicks perfectly to Ugle-Hagan. Marks it right half forward. Slick from the Bulldogs. Ugle-Hagan has the pause.
Too slow. He's got Norton charging back to the square.
Now he'll stab it inside forward 50. The lead was from Lobb. Getting a fist on it down was Bergman. It came to Boak. Clever hand pass to Alir. Kicks beyond defensive 50 to left half back. And the mark is taken there by Dersma.
They can surge forward here, the power. Dersman wheels around and heads up towards left half forward. Dixon kept running though and wasn't watching the flight of the footy. Bruce put it down and he's bowled over but got a handball away. To English, then Daniel, and now inside Johannesson. Hands it off, or gets it rather, in the end from Hannon. Handball inside to Richards. Kicks up on 45 towards left half forward. Here's Baker. Runs around the man on the mark and heads for home. Outnumbered the Dogs and they win through Bontempelli. Can't win it in the middle with Drew there, so why not float forward? And he used the body to his advantage.
Well, that's what he's got in his arsenal as well, hasn't he? If he's not winning it inside, around the footy, you can always send him forward and he can impact.
Opens the angle from the behind line and converts for the Dogs to give them the lead for the first time tonight. They're up by 3 points. 6-5-41, Port Adelaide 5-8-38. 7 into the third term on Grandstand AFL. Your experts Josh Franco and Luke Ball.
And Luke, that's probably why he's as close to the complete player as there is in the AFL in terms of his ability to impact the ball around the contest. He's big, he's strong, he's physical. He's 195, 196 centimetres. If he's not getting it done there, or there's someone sitting on him and taking away what he's great at, he can drift forward, take a contested mark and impact the scoreboard, which he did there.
Yeah, spot on. Good ball movement, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Caleb Daniel getting involved in this third quarter. He's up to 5 possessions. Treloar and Liberatore starting to pick up the slack around the ball too. 6 and 5 possessions themselves. It was that kick inside from Daniel, that piercing kick inside, some overlap run from Johannesson. They're able to shift the ball to the fat side of the ground and get it in deep to Bontempelli.
Restart. English win early. Dixon had a kick straight into the Treloar. Ricocheted back. Here's Rosie for Port to Drew by hand. Slick hand pass it was too to Dixon. Doesn't take a step forward. Dumps it inside forward 50. Marshall couldn't mark. Battling away is Bruce. Wins the football and got it out towards Liam Jones for the Bulldogs. He kicks in the direction of McRae. Tries to slide to Mark. Rosie right with him. Artie Jones takes him and the ball over the boundary line for a throw-in. Out of sight of the ground.
A tough first half, Josh Bruce, but he's just had a couple of good moments, hasn't he, in the last minute? Just playing in front. Obviously played a lot of footy forward. Just playing in front of his opponent and making some critical spoils.
Bulldogs by 3 points. Dixon wins it down. Treloar gets the clearance towards right half forward. Marked there by Mackenzie of Port. In front of the Jack Oatley stand. He's at left half back for the power.
On the 45 hits Burton. The Dogs back up on the contested possession count, 13-5 this term. Awful kick from Burton, a bit shallow for Wines. He made it look perfect. Gathered cleanly on the bounce, hand it to Butters, forward to Drew. Now Houston receives, heads inside 50. Burn-Jones caught behind Johannesson. Tried to sell the mark as he slid in but didn't get there. Got it to McRae. Then O'Brien, a bit long on his kick for Bailey Williams. Charges into it, does very well to slap it to Arthur Jones. Shrugs the pound pepper tackle and gets one high as a result. Free kick to the Dogs, who can slow things down. Nice little exit there as Port Adelaide were on the attack. And they head down to Jack in a moment. I think there's some concern with Scott Lycett. In the meantime, the Dogs look to move it up the eastern side. to right half forward. Lob sandwiched between three power defenders. Got hands to it. Down at the fall of the footy. I reckon Drew was coat hanger there. And the umpire certainly agrees. Curtis Du Bois charges in. Free kick to Port Adelaide. Jack, what's going on with Scott down there?
He is sitting in the back row, but there doesn't seem to be any reason as to why. It looks as though Jackson Mead is getting ready to come on, but yeah, I haven't seen anything to suggest why Lycett would be sitting in the back row.
So we're just waiting for that to become official. Mead, the substitute, coming in for Lycett, coming out. Port trying to move the ball around on the outer side. Dersma got tackled, lost possession of the footy. So too did Liberatore. And with Daniel taking it, he's being tackled or balled up just forward of centre wing for the Bulldogs.
It's a big moment, isn't it, if Lycett comes out of the game, forces Dixon to play in the ruck.
Here is Dixon in the ruck, and he takes clean possession. Got a hand pass away before he was tackled by Daniel. Did pretty well, sweeping it forward. It's now with McEntee. Or inside forward 50. Burn-Jones tapped at the ground against Johannesson. Gathered to Orange straight into a great tackle. Wrapping him up, Duray. That was magnificent. He hit it at pace. Burn-Jones, Duray said, "You will go no further," and takes him to ground.
Tossed up inside the attacking 50 for the Power. Treloar can get the exit, though, off the ruck contest. Only as far as Farrell. He knocked it in the path of Dersma, got it back to Houston, kick smothered by Bailey Williams. He tries to get onto the footy, but he's shepherded off it by Dixon. Keeps fighting against Norton. Coming through to assist, Jones. That's Arthur. Slid in, couldn't control it. Norton picks it up for the Dogs. Handball inside to Daniel, then receives it back. Nice little 1-2. Long footy into the scoreboard pocket. Hannon's back with the flight. It won't matter. It's out on the full. Free kick to the Power. They're trailing by 3. Close game, low scoring after a wet start here at the Adelaide Oval.
Restart. Bought from the left back pocket. They go short to find Ollie Wines from the Burton kick. Wines turns and sends it right back between fullback and centre half back with a set up again. Rosie, all tucked under the left arm, takes a step backwards and then pops it short to McKenzie, who marks. Rosie runs behind him. McKenzie dabs it short with the foot pass again. Going to build to something here. It's Houston who marks. Goes on a run, gets around Hannon, then kicks towards left half back. Horn Francis plays it on by hand to Farrell. Now an opportunity to go forward. Butters, hand passes to Farrell, has to tap it to his own advantage, gathers, drew opponent towards him, gave it to Finlayson. 70 out from goal, kicks towards left, full forward. Battle there, no one can take a mark. Umpire spotted a holding decision. It'll come the way of Bruce, and he'll have it for the Bulldogs in the right back pocket. They still lead by 3 points, 6-5-41 to 5-8-38. 13 gone in the third term. Grandstand AFL on ABC Radio and Sport Digital.
Long ball for the Dogs up to right half back. It's close to the boundary line, and Dale will do enough to force it over. Jack's on the case downstairs about Scott Lycett, but the rumblings are this may have been a tactical sub.
And I don't mind it. I reckon they look a bit top heavy with Marshall, Finlayson and Dixon forward of the ball.
Yeah, and English has been so dominant.
Yeah.
Might as well throw some more mobile players. And, yep.
Finlayson wins it down in the path of Powpepper, bursts towards the 50, socket in the path of Dixon. McEntee gathered, gave it back to him. Dixon snaps and hits the left-hand goalpost. Minor score from 40 out. Makes it a 2-point game. The Dogs up 6-5-41 to Port's 5-9-39. 13 minutes into the third on Grandstand AFL.
And Dixon on balls, already had 5 disposals this quarter, having an influence.
Ken Hinkley spoke during the week about Dixon's ability to do some ruck work if required. It's the Bulldogs beyond defensive 50. Johannesson to O'Brien to Duray, who marks right up against the boundary line at left half back. He'll kick towards the logo commentary wing. Ugle Hagen was in front, couldn't mark, spilled down to Baker. Quick hands, comes to Bonson-Pellety through Scott. Bonson-Pellety towards left half forward. Norton gathered the bouncy footy and well tackled by Aliir. Wrapped him up. Port will move it quickly. Taking a bounce, Butters runs into the centre square. Kicks towards the outer side of the ground, marking McEntee. He can pause. He's got players in good positions in front of him, and he finds with a foot past Burn-Jones. 52 out from goal into Marshall, who marks in the left forward pocket. A metre or two from the boundary and about 45 from goal.
Tell you what, I know I'm going on a little bit about Burn-Jones, but I really liked his game. Even just watching him there, his ability to break to the outside, put the afterburners on, get some distance on his opponent, take an uncontested mark, and then again, great composure inside forward 50 to find Marshall. Former
All-Australian and a best and fairest from 2020. Focus now turns to Todd Marshall, leading goal kicker last year for Port. Here he comes from 48 metres out. Kicks on its way. It's across the face. Missing to the right-hand side.
Hit the post again.
Has it just clipped the post on the way? Minor score. 1 point the difference. Let's head downstairs. Jack Burketta.
As the rain starts to come down again, can confirm Port Adelaide just a tactical substitution to get Scott Lycett out of the game and Jackson Mead in.
Contract year for Scott Lycett as well. Didn't play many games last season. Down the line go the Dogs on the western side this time.
I can think of a club that could do with a ruckman at the moment. A couple of them about.
One of them was his former club.
Yep.
Tim English receives a free kick. He's behind centre wing, right in front of the benches. Heads up to left half forward. Norton gets some space on Alear.
Great
Takes
contest,
the mark
that
in front.
Sorry, those, yeah, great contest. Alear's won a couple of one-on-one battles and Norton just evening it up a bit. Terrific contest.
Heads to the left forward pocket. Bontempelli battling with Drew there from the side. Waitman got a fly, couldn't control it. Winds at the fall of the footy as the rain starts to set in again. Handball back to Burton. He switches nicely, hits Mead the sub. Out towards the square, here's Marshall. They're flooding forward. If he can turn and go, he looks inside. Finlayson turns. The Dogs have got back as well, so he'll go long. 2-on-2 awaits. Dixon battling with Jones. Brought it to ground. Front and square was Hon Francis. Was he taken without it? Crowd thought so. Umpire didn't. Or did he? Throw out against Port Adelaide. And it will go to the Western Bulldogs. They're wet and they're angry. The Port Adelaide faithful as the Dogs head to the broadcast wing.
Trying to attack the football. Bergman couldn't quite get hands to it. Came down towards McRae for the Bulldogs. Gave it to Norton. Kicks to left half forward. Umpire spotted another holding decision. Again going the Bulldogs' way. Port unhappy about giving away free kicks. There's another one for them as Hannon puts it inside forward. 50. Great mark. Has it been paid? Ugle-Hagan it has, or had his arms chopped? Take your pick. He will be able to have a shot at goal if he likes. It's a tight angle. Probably about 7 or 8 metres inside the boundary at left half forward. He'll boot the ball from just inside 50. I reckon he's been paid the mark there. Yeah. Yep, had enough purchase on it, certainly in these conditions. And then a second grab. That is a strong grab in the wet.
Under immense pressure too, wasn't he?
Yep, got whacked across the forearm as well. It's a mark that deserves a goal. Ugle-Hagan sends it on its way. Alear went up. He claims he got a touch. Has it carried through? Goal umpire waits. Reckon they're going to send this one upstairs as well. Alear has, well, a good record at doing this sort of thing. Cast your mind back to last week. They will be sending it upstairs. Did he get a fingertip on it before it crossed the line? Not from the angle I've just seen.
Did it hit the post?
Oh, I think he's okay. I think maybe there's a little bit of the ball and hasn't
if the
fully
ball,
crossed the line.
If the ball has to have crossed the line from the side-on angle, has he been able to just nudge it into the post? That's the other question here.
Yeah.
There's no doubt Alear has got his fingertips to it. Has it crossed the line? I would say no from what we're seeing now. The Port Adelaide fans have now seen the replay on the big screen too. They know what this decision will be. Alear saves the day again. Touch of deja vu. Might not save the game, but it does save a goal just to behind. So the score, the Bulldogs 6-6-42. Port 5-10-40. 2-point lead now to the Bulldogs. 18 gone in the third term.
Could save the game, Clint. Low scoring one. Every goal matters. Burton heads long towards the square. It clears Jones. At the back was Mead. Gathers on the bounce. Heads towards the 50. Fast switch here by Port Adelaide from end to end. Marshall battling alongside Bruce. Now they can get to the footy as it rolls over the boundary line. Port kicking to the Southern Riverbank stand end this term.
And Mead, the tactical sub, already had an influence, hasn't he? Looks sharp.
Just his 13th game, the 21-year-old. Bit of pace off the bench. Dixon wins it down straight in the path of Pal Pepper. What a ruck work by the forward. Got it to Boak. 1-2 with Wines. Ran too long and got caught in the tackle. 30 out by Ed Richards. Amazing goal-saving effort. The Dogs clear and Bergman comes across to force it over the boundary line. They look like they were charging in. And Richards, the last line, holds things up for the Dogs.
2 points the Bulldogs lead by. 19 gone in the third. Umpire unfurls, hurling it back into play.
Oh, again.
English, the tap, trying to go through as Pal Pepper got taken right across the midriff. He's down. He's a little bit sore from McRae. Ball's on centre wing. Taken by Scott. Picks it up. English hand passed over his shoulder. It was a look-away one, more than hope than anything else. Farrell picked it up, gave it to Butters. Now a chance for Port once more. Boak sends it inside forward 50. Front position. The mark's been paid here to Finlayson. He's got it in the right forward pocket. He'll kick from just inside 50.
And I think even going back to the tactical sub of lights, it allows this Finlayson to be one of the main targets forward of the ball. And in that example there, not that he was actually involved in the marking contest, but drew enough pressure from the opposition to give away that free kick.
He took the mark. The free kick was paid. What was on the way towards him. So it will count on the stats as a free kick. Finlayson won't mind as he kicks towards goal. It's out to the left, doesn't have the distance. The Bulldogs can rebound. Oh, Williams almost read himself into trouble. Got it back towards Liam Jones, who kicks towards Daniel. Probably not the person you want to kick to. Everyone on the ground is taller than he is, and he's able to get an even contest and see it over the boundary line for a throw-in. 21 minutes gone in the third, still the Dogs by 2.
Might check in with Jack and see how heavy the rain is down there, because it feels like it's picking up. Toss back in. Dixon wins it down ahead of English. Got it in the path of Rosie. Back to Wines. Now Houston from bang on 50. Heads all the way to the goal line, and it's shepherded through by Marshall. Port Adelaide hit back as the heavens begin to open at the Adelaide Oval. The Power up by 4. 6:10:46. Plays 6:6:42. Time on in the third. How you doing down there, Jack?
Yep, pretty wet. Well, it was a nice bit of play from the clearance, wasn't it? In these conditions, they were clean. And they've had a good little 4 or 5 minutes here, Port. Bulldogs, in terms of contested possessions anyway, have controlled the quarter, but have just been able to wrestle momentum and back a bit. And, yeah, that was a lovely bit of clearance work. Handball back inside from Ollie Wines to Dan Houston. Probably had a little too much space, didn't he, from a Bulldogs point of view.
Yeah.
He's a beautiful long kick, as we know. A nice bit of shepherding work from Todd Marshall on the goal line.
What I will say as well, the injection of Dixon into the ruck, he's had a real big influence in this quarter, giving his mids confidence to fly through and get hold of the footy at the stoppage.
The restart will be the Bulldogs who get the clearance. Trelaw kicks towards left half forward. Alir going back, couldn't mark. Waitman was able to get a hand pass out to Hannon. Hand pass to no one in particular. Wines got in the way. Went back by a hand. Rosie will have to come back to try to mop up. Hannon got there first. Tried to tap it to his own advantage. Rosie read it well. Gathered the football. Gave it on to Bergman. He's able to get a kick away high up in the air. And then wonderful up and markings English. Normally that's a stock standard mark, but the rain is bucketing down. The ball's like a cake of soap. He's done well. Sends it back towards full forward. Norton maybe a little push in the back. Umpire said play on. Lob tried to get a hand pass out, lost it. Houston comes in from the side, trying to emerge with it. Liberatore, he'd love these conditions. Again, Pal Pepper onto Wines, kicked straight into traffic. Liberatore again. Trelaw had it, but hand passed it straight to an opponent. It's Rosie who goes up the middle. The ball bounces towards the outer wing.
First to the footy is Jones. He's got a bit of trouble though. Finlayson's on his tail. Handball out. Hit Bailey Williams, now inside. Ed Richards darts through a couple, heads to the scoreboard pocket. Waitman forced to spoil from behind. Pal Pepper threw a fist and completely missed. Waitman can gather on the bounce as a result. Gave it to Norton, charging through Hannon, tried to sell the high. Not sure it was there. It rolls through. It's coming. The non-controlling umpire has paid the high tackle. Charging in, Curtis Du Bois from outside the attacking 50 has somehow seen the free kick in the pack. 15 out, straight in front.
Yeah, I reckon you called it. There wasn't a heap in it, just slipping up over the shoulder. Mitch Hannon, who's had a pretty quiet night, but can have a big impact here on the game. Just got down low and hard, and that's the order of the day in these conditions, we know.
The sub last week, now into the 22, and capitalising on the opportunity. Another lead change. Dogs back up by 2. And it is our 4th of the night. 7:6:48 plays 6:10:46. 24 played in the third term on Grandstand AFL. Your experts Josh Franco and Luke Ball.
If you wind the clock back about 30 seconds, the exit from Connor Rosie wasn't great. It wasn't great. He had Finlayson streaming towards goal. He decided to go wide, actually to the advantage of the Western Bulldogs player. They were able to rebound and enter their forward 50, and just through that contest after contest, drew the free kick. But the exit from Connor Rosie had to be better.
Bulldogs by 2 points again. It's an absorbing contest in the wet at Adelaide Oval. It's throwing up. English got the telling tap down. He'll chase it himself, coming the other way and just hacking it forward. Houston up towards centre half forward. No mark taken with a pack there. Richard tapped it once forward, then gathers, got tackled, slapped forward by Dale. Only as far though as Horn Francis. Wonderful smother, Bontempelli. Won it to ground. Spills to Treloar. Back to Bontempelli of the Bulldogs. Kicks towards left half forward. Stretching Waitman. Couldn't quite mark Norton. Clever. Tapped it inboard. Gave it to Liberatore. Now it's with McRae. Kick towards full forward. Waitman flew. Couldn't mark. He looks to knock it down. Picked up again by Hannon. Breaks one tackle. Tries to get a ball away. He's been pinged. Holding the ball as he looked to try to work it towards goal. Tackled on the ball, jarred free. Free kick to Port through Burton at right full-back.
Oh, yeah.
The Bulldogs by 2.
Desperate play, wasn't it, Clint? Probably got away with one there. The power, they're out the back, the Dogs. Nice bit of desperation from Ryan Burton.
He switches to Houston now, long to left half-back. Mead caught behind, made a contest. Forces it over the boundary line. Josh, have you seen Ryan Burton tonight? Essentially replacing Tom Jonas. It's a big role to fill.
Yeah. And look, very good player, obviously, Ryan Burton. He's much more of an attacking halfback flanker, but hasn't really influenced the game like he can.
Dixon front position, won it down. Rosie slaps it behind, looking for Houston. Couldn't get to the footy, almost tackled without it. And forced over the boundary line as the ball rolls out to the Gavin Wanganeen stand. It is wet out there at the moment. There was only a brief patch. There wasn't any rain so far tonight. The punters have really suffered. They've stuck around for the second game of this doubleheader. Dixon again wins it down, looking for Mead. Overran the footy. Liberatore puts his head over it. Got it out for the Dogs to lob. Little 1-2 with McRae. Kicks around the body. Tumbles its way into the 50. Coming out to meet it. Ugle-Hagan slipped straight through him. Squirted back towards Burn-Jones. Now Dixon didn't have as much time as he thought and caught holding the ball. Stopped and waited for an opportunity. And run down by Ugle-Hagan.
Yeah, Ugle-Hagan. That's what you can do. You don't have to be getting a heap of the footy. Efforts like that inspire your team. Great
inside
effort.
forward 50. Norton flew. Couldn't mark. Spills off hands. He stayed down for a moment. Norton hit the ground hard. Ball's over the boundary line for a throwing. Right full forward for the Western Bulldogs. Leading by 2 points. 27.5 gone. Third term. Throwing in. Dixon took front position. Got a hand on it. Goes back towards the boundary line. Drew picks it up. Did really well. Got it onto Rosie. Kicks towards the outer wing. Which way will it bounce? It sat beautifully for Dale. He stepped past one, then got around a second Port player. Kicked into the right forward pocket. Wanted English again. Mackenzie attacked the football and thumped it over the boundary line. Strong double fist to make sure of it. Throwing about 45 out from the Bulldogs attacking goal in the right forward pocket. Their lead is 2 points. 28 gone in the third.
Bit of a chess match at the Adelaide Oval. Lycett subbed out. Dixon the main runk. Bontempelli's playing forward after being tagged by Drew. Dixon wins it down. Coming through. Couldn't get cleared out by Bontempelli. Handball came out in the end by Dixon. Didn't really hit anyone in the end. Bontempelli with a nice spin out of the tackle. Got a handball to Liberatore. Now out wide. Dale tackled as he kicked it. Carried about 5 metres. Burton charging out of the defensive goal line. Couldn't control it. It's a bit of a rolling maul at the moment. Rosie rips it out in the end. Handball back. Bergman can clear out towards the eastern side. Front position. Pepper nearly pulled it in on his knee. In the end, gathers anyway at the fall. The footy rips it away from a couple and hands it to Mead. Had the runner on the outside and Finlayson didn't quite hit him. Won't matter. They'll get a second chance. McEntee back to Finlayson. Heads up to left half forward. It's tumbling in open territory. Burn-Jones shepherded out of it. Almost locked up by Jones. Crowd isn't happy. Dogs gather through Johannesson. Clearing kick out to right half back. They keep fighting for it. McRae dives onto the footy. He's got 2 on top of him. Just fell into it, holding the ball. Brett Rosebery knew exactly what was coming. Made up his mind as soon as McRae fell in. Rioli receives it. Kicks inside to Houston. Just behind centre half forward. It is bucketing down. Houston heads long, right forward pocket. He's got a lead on from Mead. Instead went towards Palpepper. Front position, one down by Liberatore. And in the end, we'll get a ball up. About 20 out, 45-degree angle to the right of the power goal. They trail by 2.
Lob rather at the back, got a tap on it against Port. It comes out to Rosie anyway. Centering kick around the body. Richards marks, but it was a touch, so he had to play on quickly. Came only as far as McEntee. Threw it on the boot immediately. It'll bounce over the boundary line. Left full forward. Let's head downstairs. Jack Burketta.
I think I've become somewhat of an expert on rain tonight, and just that moment just then before, that was the heaviest it has been all night. If I can find one positive, at least it's not hailing.
Send that man a snorkel on the boundary. He's trying to get to it again as Dixon took clean possession. Kicks out of bounds on the full. At left full forward. Free kick at right full back for the Bulldogs, who lead by 2. 7-6 playing 6-10. Gone past the 30-minute mark in the third quarter.
20 seconds to go. They just need to make sure they're composed here, the Dogs. Instead, Jones goes long. Front position, it was nearly taken by Burton. That would have been a quick rebound for the Power. To be a ball up. Still time for a score. 55 out, left half forward. Finlayson in the ruck, beaten by English. Spills out to McClay. Clearing kick for the Dogs. He puts it in the path of Waitman. Coming out to meet at Hannon. Gathered on the bounce. Put it in the path of Bontempelli. Fresh airy. Gathered by Burton. One last inside 50, but the Siren will beat them. The Dogs clawing back into the contest. They're up by 2 at three-quarter time. There was a late mark by Junior Rioli, which is one of the crowd were getting up and about, but the Siren had well and truly blown. The Dogs lead 7-6-48 to the Power 6-10-46. A grandstand finish coming your way on Grandstand AFL.
Port Adelaide led by 15 points at quarter time. They led by 9 points at half time. They now trail by 2. And the goal kickers for the Western Bulldogs. 7 goals kicked by them so far. 3 have gone the way of Cody Waitman. 1 to Marcus Bontempelli. 1 to Mitch Hannon. A single also to Aaron Norton and to Tim English. While for Port Adelaide, their 6 goals. 2 coming from the boot of Darcy Byrne-Jones. The others, Powell-Pepper, Houston, Boak and McEntee. Three-quarter time. The Bulldogs 7-6-48 to Port 6-10-46 on ABC Radio around the nation. Sport Digital, now streaming on the ABC Listen app. This is Grandstand AFL.
With the ABC Listen app, you can take the footy with you wherever you go. Off to walk the dog?
Take the footy!
Going camping?
Take the footy!
Picnic in the park?
Take the footy!
ABC Sport's expert coverage of the AFL
Incredible grab!
and the NRL. Every goal, try, mark and tackle, live and commercial free. So whatever you're up to,
Take the footy!
take the footy with you on the ABC Listen app.
You're listening to the AFL Gather Round
Grandstand AFL.
on radio
ABC Sport Digital.
and now streaming every match on the ABC Listen app.
Norton tries to win it down. Waitman looks to sock it off the ground. Remarkable. Oh, he can do everything. First game back, he's in everything. Corey Waitman gets his 3rd.
Here's Baker, runs around the man on the mark and heads for home. Outnumbered the Dogs, and they win through Bontempelli. Opens the angle from the behind line and converts for the Dogs to give them the lead for the first time tonight. Toss back in, Dixon wins it down ahead of English. Got it in the path of Rosie, back to Wines. Now Houston from bang on 50, heads all the way to the goal line, and it's shepherded through by Marshall. Port Adelaide hit back as the heavens begin to open at the Adelaide Oval.
The 2023 AFL season.
On radio
ABC Sport Digital.
and now streaming on the ABC Listen app.
Geelong play tomorrow, but if they were here tonight, you could say it's raining cats and dogs. You've got half of those downstairs. And the Western Bulldogs, they lead by 2 points over Port Adelaide, 7-6-48 to Port 6-10-46. Results earlier today. Brisbane, big winners over North Melbourne by 75 points. 22-20, 152 to North, 12-5-77. While here earlier at the Adelaide Oval, Mount Barker, the venue for the first of those games, Essendon beat Melbourne. That was one shock many. 15-14, 104 to the Demons, 11-11, 77. But what do we make of this? It's been tight, it's been tough here at the the Adelaide Oval. The Bulldogs by 2 points. How does it play out, Luke Ball and Josh Franco?
Well, it remains to be seen, doesn't it? It has been an arm wrestle. And again, you just felt like the Dogs had started to get on top. They had a good quarter, didn't they? 3-1. We know how precious goals are tonight. It was around the ball. I really loved the quarter of Adam Treloar, 13 possessions, 7 contested, 6 clearances.
Yep.
Nothing pretty, just getting the ball forward, getting his body, strong body over the ball. Liberatore got going as well in his 200th game, 10 possessions, 2 clearances. Caleb Daniels started the quarter well. And Bontempelli, who we know is getting the attention. I just thought he only had the 5 possessions, but I think the smother and he's just having an impact on the game as well. So plus 10 for the quarter, contested possession as the rain came tumbling down again, Josh. That's where they started to get on top.
They did.
Port get that goal late to really make it a seesawing affair. And I mean, it's just going to be a battle of wills, isn't it? Battle of attrition in this last quarter.
Yeah, and I was almost going to ask the question as well. If you're Ken Hinkley and Beveridge, what's the message? It's almost what you've just said there. Look, it's going to be an arm wrestle. You just got to keep persisting around that layer 1, layer 2 contest area and win that contested ball, and then hopefully you can take advantage of that moving forward.
We saw the Port activate their sub tactically, and I think that was a really good move. You called it. The English matchup wasn't working for them, so let's throw something different at him, bring Finlayson into the game a bit more and bring a smaller player on. For the Bulldogs, well, they've got Toby McLean sitting there in the green vest. I feel like they need to activate him now. A night like this, there's some heavy legs out there. You've got a fresh leg sitting on the bench, get him out there. Wondering who it might be. We saw Josh Bruce cop a really heavy knock across the wing there in that quarter, so maybe they're forced to make the sub anyway with him.
1 quarter to play. What are the stats? Tell us, Aaron Bryans.
Disposals the way of the Dogs, but it's been pretty tight all night. 99 to 91. Contested possessions, they're now up 46 to 38. So Port led all night until that third term, and now they're well and truly on top. The hit-outs count. Actually, I was just looking at the third term there, Willie, which is why I was wondering why they were so far ahead. So they dominated that third term. The overall contested possession count still Port's way by 2, so it's certainly levelled out. Disposals the Dogs' way by 48. The hit-out count is pretty even as well, 27 to 26 Port Adelaide's way. The frees 19 to 17 against Port Adelaide. They've struggled with that across the season as well. And also the tackle count Port Adelaide's way, 57 to 43. I haven't seen Josh Bruce return from the ruins, Clint. We'll check in with Jack shortly, but maybe that is the sub.
And again, I think that might, even though he had a good quarter, Bruce, that might just work in their favour a bit. I think with Dixon going into the ruck, they can cover for the Port tall forwards and bring some fresh legs. Yeah, see Toby McLean out here on the wing now, so that looks like that's probably been activated. So Toby McLean, over to you to have an impact in this last quarter.
He stands, you can see him. He's got a very clean shorts and jumper on. He does stand out alongside Travis Boak. Closest to us on the commentary edge of the centre square. The Dogs had their noses just in front. They lead by 2. Final term underway. English won it down. Bontempelli kicked forward and then pushed Drew away. He's got a free kick out of all of that. He was being held. A little bit frustrated by the efforts of Drew, understandably too. He stands just in front of the centre circles. Bontempelli for the Bulldogs. Kicks long towards full forward, right up the middle. Dixon! Strong grab. Going to ground was lob. Umpire's happy with the contest. Dixon takes the mark. A genuine contested grab. And he moves it short to Williams. He'll go short again. The left back pocket. It remains now with Burton. A hush around the ground. This quarter starts. Short pass to Butters. The green boots moves it to Farrell for Port. Slow, deliberate build-up. The rain has mostly stopped after being torrential twice now throughout the game. Kick is towards left half forward. Is it out of bounds on the full? It is. Free kick here for the Western Bulldogs. Frustration, no doubt, for Port Adelaide. Liam Jones has it for the Bulldogs to take the free kick. He'll put it towards right half forward. Alir pushed his opponent out from the side in Norton. Ball hits the deck. Out after it is Boat, getting there first though. Artie Jones for the Dogs. He sees it over the line for a throw-in right half forward for the Western Bulldogs. They lead by 2 points, still opening 90 seconds of the final term.
I wonder if this crowd, Lowell, is just a little bit of nervousness. Port Adelaide hasn't exactly filled their fans with a lot of confidence this season. They won in a close game last week. Off the ruck contest, Houston to Boak. Now to Burton. Nice little switch across half-back. McKenzie loads up. Straight through the square up to half-forward. Jones in front position. Wrapped up with Finlayson. Got a spoil. Spills out to Dale for the Dogs. Treloar in a sandwich. Dropped it. Then flung it out. Back to Dale. Take your pick for the free kick. The umpire kept the whistle away for both. English back with a flight. Couldn't control it. Dixon can gather. Dinks it really nonchalantly. Just tumbled its way into the square. Treloar can cut it off. Back to his skipper, Bontempelli, and hits Waitman back with the flight. He has been everywhere tonight. Straight in front, 35 out, a chance to kick his fourth.
I was almost going to say the Dixon-English matchup could almost be one of those sort of matchups in terms of the influence that Dixon can have on the contest and the influence that English already has. But that little dinky kick inside the corridor from Dixon probably wasn't the answer, was it? And then a great contested mark there from Waitman. He's a star, this kid.
Isn't he? Again, just first to move, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Instinctive forward craft.
An incredible return so far for Waitman. He may be the spark that lights the fire in the Dogs this season. He's got 4. And the Western Bulldogs out to their biggest lead of the night, 8 points. Early stages of the final term, 8-6-54, plays 6-10-46. Your experts, Josh Branko and Luke Ball. But firstly, down to the boundary with Jack McKenna.
Can confirm Western Bulldogs' Josh Bruce has been subbed out for Toby McLean. He spent all three-quarter time break down in the rooms, emerged feeling very sore and sorry for himself after copping a hit to his midriff. Didn't look that great for him, but Toby McLean already having an impact.
You talk about the advantage of those small forwards that are able to impact physically in the air and take a contested mark as Waitman did on that occasion. They're worth their weight in gold. I came to the Richmond-Sydney game last night, saw Papler kick 6 goals too, and Waitman's having just as much influence tonight.
The restart, English wins the tap again, and after it, Horne-Francis gets there for Port. Kicks around the body, stretching Baker, trying to tap it to his own advantage. Powell Pepper met him coming in from the side. He's lost the boot, Powell Pepper. He'll continue to chase, though, as Dale gathered, went back by hand to Liberatore, skirts along the boundary line, has actually taken it over. Powell Pepper will have to go back and retrieve that missing right shoe.
Oh, he knows one way, doesn't he? Sammy Powell Pepper.
He does. Ball to be put back in. Just forward of the wing for Port Adelaide. Dixon does win this. Horne-Francis taps it across half forward. And Jones leaves it. Horne-Francis continues on. Bontempelli slides to apply pressure. Worked out by O'Brien of the Bulldogs to Baker. Kicks towards the outer side. The 2-3s battle. Burton won that and the ball spilled out. It came to Alir. Trying to get a hand pass inboard was Dursma. They turn it over, Port. Here's Artie Jones. Breaks one tackle. Goes back by hand again for the Bulldogs. Finds Treloar. Kicks towards left half forward. Boak calmly up. The former skipper, most experienced player out there, drags in the football at right half back, and he'll switch play to Drew, marking between centre half back and left half back. The Dogs are 8-6-54, Port 6-10-46, 4 gone in the last.
Drew looked for Powell Pepper down the line. He had 2 to beat. Charging across, Johannesson was wrapped high by Burn Jones. So the Dogs win out.
Loved his game. I just think, I can't believe they played him forward for so long, Jason Jones. He just looks so much more at home across half back.
Up to right half forward for the Dogs. Johannesson tried to get it towards Hannon. He flew. Had to beat Williams in the air.
I was to say, Johannesson went through that period, didn't he? Playing as that attacking half-back. Sides actually shut him out of the game. So they almost forced their hand to put him forward to try to break that. But he is most dangerous running off that half-back flank.
I did find it incredible that an Orm Smith medalist disappeared off the map for so long. And now he seems to be back on the radar. Toss back in from the boundary throw in. Horne-Francis received it. Spun in the kick. Didn't travel too far. It bounced off Liberatore. Free kick. Zach Butters was ripped away from it by Daniel. Port Adelaide receive it at left half back. Trailing by 8. Still plenty to play out in this final term. Both clubs 2-2. Would love consecutive victories. Butters heads up to left half forward. Finlayson flies from behind for the spoil, but slapped it straight to McRae. Gave it back to Johannesson. The Dogs again up to half forward. Norton with a nice sit. Got on the back of Burton, plays on immediately. Hands it to the runner, Daniel. Close to the boundary line. Centres his kick for Hannon. Ugle-Hagan was there as well, and neither really went for it. Spilled to the back. Head over the footy. Farrell can't pull it away. Ugle-Hagan puts his head in as well and holds things up. 20 out, straight in front. The Port Adelaide attacking 50. Well, the Western Bulldogs attacking 50, I should say. Clint?
Umpire hurls it aloft. Lobb took clean possession, might have been held as he tried to get a hand pass out. Just got the hand pass away to Daniel in time. He was tackled immediately, no prior, ball up. Norton will do the ruck work here against Finlayson. Finlayson palmed it down, side of the hand. It came to Aliir, threw it on the boot. Still there to be won. Drew picks it up. He's taken to ground as well. Wrapped up by Waitman, who's determined to be involved in anything he can be tonight. First game back for him. What an impact he's had. 4 goals and a stunning mark. Lobb wins it down for the Bulldogs, comes out the back to Houston, gives it to Rosie, just gets away from Bontempelli, kicks into space at right half back, race on here. Oh, Baker hit it at speed. Hand pass to Richards for the Bulldogs, now hand pass to Ugle-Hagan, shoves off one attempted tackle, sweeps the hand pass back to O'Brien. He kicks high up into the air towards full forward. Aliir flew, got a fist to it, spilled down to Horne-Francis, tackled immediately. Ball up the call between centre half forward and full forward for the Western Bulldogs. They've been camped here for a bit, the Bulldogs, trying to find the major opening. Their lead remains 8 points.
Tossed up by Robert O'Gorman. Finlayson won it down to Rosie. Clearing kick only as far as English. He's been everywhere tonight. And in the wet, plenty of marks as well. Centre half forward. Lowers the kick, almost leant back on it looking for Bontempelli. Just didn't get there as Williams stuck a hand out. Spilled out to Horne-Francis. Clearing kick was a little wide for Mead, but just enough to stay in the field of play. Boundary throw in to come. Right half forward for the Dogs. They're kicking to the Riverbank stand end, up by 8.
Pressing though, aren't they? That's 5 inside 50s in a row for the Dogs. Port just holding up here.
Back into play. English and Finlayson both had a touch. Liberatore got a hand pass over the shoulder. Port looked to move it quickly forward. It comes through Butters now to Houston in the middle of the ground. 1-on-1 contest inside forward. 50 Jones. Oh, the free kick's gone the other way. No, it has gone that way to the mark. I saw the umpire point back and then suddenly change his mind. I thought, no, surely that's a Jones mark. That's a great mark, 1-on-1 up against Dixon. And then they turn it over. Horne-Francis has it at left half forward. Jones has to do well. Came out to spoil. Spilled down to Butters. Hand passed over the shoulder. Trying to get to it again. Mead got tackled. Lost it. Johannesson taken over the boundary line for a throw-in.
Just need a little bit more composure from Horne-Francis going inside forward 50. Yeah. They took the mark. Needed to get back off it.
Wasn't that super from Liam Jones? No. That little 30 seconds will be shown on the tape on Monday if they get up the Dogs.
English front position. Finlayson taps it down, though, straight to Horne-Francis. Got it to Houston. Off a step. High towards the top of the goal square. Sits up, 30 out. Mark taken. Marshall clunked it. Had O'Brien all over him and still managed to pull it in. Straight in front. 35 out.
That's a great contested mark. Under all sorts of pressure. Hasn't had a huge impact on the game thus far, Todd Marshall. Needs to go back and kick this for Port Adelaide. Critical goal in the context of the game.
Had a ripping season, but uncharacteristically quiet tonight. 8-3 for the year. Had a goal last week.
Dixon's coming off too. He looks a bit sore.
It's on a plate for Marshall. Comes in from 45.
Good finish.
And kicks true. Back down to a 2-point game. Port Adelaide advances to 7-10-52. The Western Bulldogs 8-6-54. 10 minutes into the final term on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app.
Yeah, great contested mark, wasn't it? One of only 7 marks inside 50 for the game for Port Adelaide. Nice finish against the run of play a bit too, wasn't it? We spoke about prior to that. It was 5 inside 50s in a row to the Dogs, and they held up well, Port. They could have conceded another one. It would have made it really challenging, but good enough to transition the ball and get a couple of repeat inside 50s themselves, and a lovely mark and goal from Marshall.
Let's go downstairs. Jack Burketta.
You guys are spot on. Charlie Dixon has come from the field looking pretty sore. The doctors are looking at his right knee.
Which means Jeremy Finlayson, as he is going to have to do the ruck work. He waits, though, to allow Lobb to tap it wherever he wants to. Actually hit it towards Butters, who on the ground handed it off to Horne-Francis, gave it to Burton, kicks high up in the air. Burne-Jones tries to get there. Duray, good fist. Was at full stretch, got around the body of his opponent and saw the ball over the boundary line for a throw-in right underneath the Max Bashir stand, out a wing from our broadcast position. Bulldogs lead is 2 points. Ball put back into play again. Lobb once more won it against Finlayson. They've almost decided not to contest The ruck contest here, Port Adelaide, with Lysett being subbed out and now Dixon off the ground through injury. The ball's been locked in. We'll have another ball up on centre wing out of side.
It was incredibly successful last year, Clint. Jeremy Finlayson playing as the extra midfielder. And again, they're going to get the clearance on Francis Soccers off the deck. It only goes about 10 metres and rolls over the boundary line. But the first three we've seen Finlayson in, Port Adelaide has got territory from it. So it's working.
It is, and Horne-Francis starting to impose himself in the game. Look, getting busy around the stoppage in the contest.
We'll start behind Lobb again from this boundary throw-in. Attacking edge of the square, right half forward. Lets Lobb have a charge at it. He taps it down. It was in the path, I think, of Scott, but didn't really get there. Just comes out to Horne-Francis. Nice little kick into the scoreboard pocket. Marshall on the lead. He's popping up when it matters most in the final term, although this, with a wet footy, is going to be tough. He's right on the boundary line. 35 out. He'll have to start on the fence.
So that's 4, I think, ruck contests. Port Adelaide didn't contest, and yet they've won every single one of them with the clearance.
And it almost looks like Powell Peppers starting as a forward coming up to the stoppage, and he's been given licence just to rip through it, get the ball moving forward, get momentum going towards your goal.
Marshall moves the security guards out of the way to start his run in front of the Gavin Wanganeen stand. A long approach from outside the paint. He'll come just in for the kick. Heads for home. It's a tight angle. Oh, it's a magnificent finish. A masterpiece in set shot goal kicking from Todd Marshall. He's gone bang, bang, and Port Adelaide are up by 4. Back-to-back goals, 8-10-58. The Dogs 8-6-54. 13 minutes into the final term on Grandstand AFL.
Well, you called it, Luke. Early in that last quarter, Port Adelaide were under siege when I think you said they were 5-zip inside 50s to the Western Bulldogs, and it's almost just swung on its head through Todd Marshall. Take a bow. He's taken one contested mark and another inside 50 and kicked an absolute cracker of a goal from the boundary. Just what Port Adelaide needed.
Yeah, and the clearance, it's funny, isn't it? Because you're right. They have no recognised ruckman in there now, Port. The message has got to go out to Rory Lobb, belt it forward. Stop trying to be too cute. And you'd hope that he'd worked that out already, but you're right, Clint, 4 clearances in a row, just through no contest in the ruck.
When you're stuck, holler for a Marshall. And he's delivered on the restart. Lobb got it down, but didn't slap it forward as we were expecting. It's spilled the way of Port. Butters was locked in. Comes now to Finlayson. They've won one ruck contest, that is Port, and they're able to get the clearance as well. Butters threw it on the boot. He bounces towards centre half forward. Richards gathers, well tackled. He wouldn't get around McEntee, takes him to ground. Downstairs, Jack Burketta.
They've strapped up Charlie Dixon's right knee and getting ready to put him back out there.
But it's working. Leave him off. Tossed up. Attacking edge of the square. Finlayson won it down. At the feet of Butters. Slides in, had 2 to beat. Liberatore's trying to wrench it out. Loses out in the end to Horne-Francis, who bursts away from the pack. Kicks towards the scoreboard pocket, diving forward. Powell Pepper couldn't quite get there. Gathers anyway, hands it to Rosie. Tight angle around the body, looking for Marshall again. Same spot, but not the same result. This time O'Brien learnt his lesson. Got in front, knocked it over the boundary line.
We asked me about Jason Horne-Francis before the game, Josh, and he's playing in bursts, isn't he? Yeah. And he's certainly having a burst at the moment. He's had 8 disposals, 3 clearances, 6 contested possessions in the last 10 minutes.
Throwing in. Again, Lobb won it down, went and gathered his own football. Couldn't take it cleanly. Daniel could. Kicks the Bulldogs to left half back where it's intercepted. Bergman marking for Port Adelaide right up against the boundary. He's 2 kicks from goal. Puts the orange boots in motion, sends it into the right forward pocket. Again, Lobb front position, spilled down to McEntee. Pressure came from McRae at the last minute, kicked up and down on the spot. Umpire spotted a free kick. It's a holding decision. It's going Port's way. They pulled one out of there. It will come here to Dersma. He's pretty much right in front. He'll put boot to ball from 35.
Now, just looking at that previous aerial contest, Todd Marshall, even though he didn't influence in terms of marking the ball, just his contest and his ability to hit the pack and hit the numbers to bring the ball to the front was outstanding. He's having a purple patch.
First possession for the quarter, Xavier Dersma. Only 10 for the game, so been reasonably quiet. Big moment here, though.
Massive moment to put them beyond 2 goals. Port Adelaide lead by 4 points. They now lead by 10. Dersma kicks truly. Could it be a telling moment in this contest? In front of a crowd of 45,115. That's the two games together. It's Port by 10. 9-10-64 to the Bulldogs 8-6-54. Xavier Dersma puts his name on the goal kickers list for Port.
Impressive response, hasn't it been, Josh? It felt like that first 5 minutes are under siege in the back half, Port, but they've gone bang, 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 haven't they? 3 goals, and really, again, it's just been around the ball and the clearance work. And we mentioned Horn Francis, led by him, and Butters getting the ball forward, and that was a free kick and a nice finish from Xavier Dersma. Over to you, to the Dogs, to see if they can respond.
3 unanswered goals. Finlayson in the ruck again and will win the clearance. He stayed down, got it from English, gave it to Rosie, heads to the goal square, back with the flight. Brave there by Jones. Didn't know what was coming and took the intercept mark for the Dogs. Errant kick, though, as he heads to left half back. Almost made it look good, Ed Richards. Couldn't quite reel it in. Caught in the Power Pepper tackle on the pain of attacking 50 for the Power. Mead flicks one over his head inside the arc. Picked up by Johannesen. Got it out to Richards. And the kick is smothered by Power Pepper. In the scoreboard pocket, 45 out. Port Adelaide. Huge momentum surge in the fourth. They feel like they're fired up at the moment.
White hot at the moment.
18 gone in the last. Port lead by 10 over the Bulldogs. Throwing in again. Dixon's back there, won it down, but tapped it straight to Richards. Gets a clearing kick away that hits the chest of Baker. Has it for the Bulldogs, turns and plays on immediately. Long kick down the outer side. Bergman up, got a touch on the footy. Chases it towards the boundary. He's happy to see it over. Eagle Hagan right with him. Throw in. About 70 out from the Western Bulldogs goal. There's still plenty of time for the Bulldogs. They need to make the most of their foray forward.
Jack McRae, no possessions for the quarter. Liberatore, only 2 handballs.
Throwing in. One down with the left hand of English. Treloar spilled to him. Hand pass back to English, and he was taken to ground. Good tackle coming then from Mead. I'll throw it up again. Once more, English wins it. Straight to Scott. Spins around the body. Kicks out of bounds on the full by about a metre. It'll be a free kick to Port in the right back pocket. They remain in front by 10. 19 gone in the last on Grandstand AFL. Clint Wilden alongside Aaron Bryans, our experts, Josh Franco and Luke Ball.
The cannon, Trent McKenzie, heads long up to centre wing on the outer side. Marshall flies, can't control it, spills to Horn Francis. Disposal 9 for the quarter, but it's poor. He gave it to McRae, weaving in traffic, kicks errantly to the top of the goal square. Norton's charging onto it, gets away from Alia, who brings him down at the last line. Did he have the footy? Yes, it's a minor score rush through. The Port fans just absorbed by Alia's defensive efforts tonight. An absolute hero down back. Not sure Norton had the footy, but Port have got away with one there.
You talk about critical moments in the game. I reckon that could prove to be one of them.
Just had a fumble, didn't he, Norton? Didn't take the first one clearly, and then it was almost a free kick, maybe a hold, maybe a trip, but did enough. Alia.
That's a genuine 50-50 decision, that one. It's gone the way of Port under that, desperate play from Alia. 20 minutes gone. 9 points in favour of the Power. Finlayson wins it down straight to Daniel. Umpire spotted a free kick. It's going the way of Port. Thanks to their current makeshift ruckman in Finlayson.
Yeah, good Zebo. This last quarter.
Amazing since he's come onto this role. He was being held in the ruck battle. So with his blue boots, he'll kick towards left, half forward for Port. Going up, Marshall, I didn't think really made any real effort to get to the football. Umpire says it's okay. Came out the back to Mead. He has been busy in this quarter. Wobbles a kick inside forward 50. Back there is Liam Jones. Gathers, sends it from whence it came, where it's been marked again by Marshall. He has it 70 from goal at left half forward for Port Adelaide.
It's after 9:30, Clint. Marshall law's been activated. Heads into the 50. Straight to the hole to Caleb Daniel. Poor kick. Had plenty of options. Somehow hit the smallest man out there. Western Bulldogs in the defensive 50, trailing by 11. We did touch on it in the pre-game, Josh. Jason on Francis was almost the X factor that won Port Adelaide the game against Brisbane.
Yep.
In this final term, 9 touches, 7 contested, leading the Power at the moment. They've switched across defensive 50, the Dogs.
Some good moments late last week too. He's a fourth quarter specialist.
The 200-gamer Liberatore clears to the eastern side. Fly from the pack, spills to the back. Hugo Hagan got a handball in hope towards Norton, who overran it. Spills towards the boundary line. Gang tackle on Baker. Umpire waits and calls ball up on the outer side.
Find a way to capitalise on the advantage here. English try and belt the ball out into space, forward, get some run onto it.
I'll get the clearance through Treloar, but he kicked down the throat of Horn Francis. Mark defensive edge of the logo, outer wing, moves it short to Rosie. Rosie looks to bring Bergman into play. Had to really run to that. Was able to take the mark. Still in the centre square. Port happy to take a little bit of time off the clock as they work it across centre half back. Comes to Rosie again after originally giving it to Williams. Now it's moved out towards centre wing. Still a lot of time playing keeping off as Farrell does chip short and works it to Butters. Marking just shy of left half forward. Pauses. It's the right arm on the hip. Now decides to move it inside forward 50. Power Pepper not quite there. Punched away by English. Spills to Houston. Houston dumps it towards right full forward. One-on-one battle. Marshall went out after it. Couldn't mark. Slapped it back in the direction of Rioli. Couldn't pick it up. The Bulldogs can clear. Comes through Williams and then to Richards. Kicks into the middle of the ground. Clean bowls Williams. He couldn't get there for Port. Picked up out of there by Liberatore. Hand pass to Daniel. Hand pass to Richards. Moves a hand pass in the direction of Baker on the wing.
Just keeps it in on the boundary line. Whole body was out. Kicks up towards left half forward. One-on-one. Aaliyah disposes of Ugle-Hagan with ease. The maturity, the composure. Intercept mark again. Right half back and then pops it close to the boundary line to Mackenzie. What a night. Dislocated finger the first term. And still, their backline general. Poor kick from Mackenzie. Put Boak under a bit of pressure. Got it back to the cannon. Kicks up towards right half forward. Finlayson front position, won it down. For the footy though is Liberatore. Can't shake Boak but got a handball out to Treloar. He fumbled. McRae will tackle and force the footy over the line. Left half forward for the Dogs. Trailing by 11.
Just been watching Finlayson and Dixon. Finlayson's been on ball for the last 7 or 8 minutes. He's looking for a bit of a chop out, but I think Dixon's happy forward at the moment. Finlayson's been good.
Ball back into play. One down by Finlayson, but straight to Daniel this time. Kicks the Bulldogs up into the air. Houston trying to run with the flight of the football was infringed. Had his arms held, he'll get the free kick. Thrown back to him by Waitman. 9 points. Port Adelaide's lead. As Houston will go towards the outer wing. Marshall waiting. O'Brien wins it by punching it over the boundary line. Have another throw-in. Been trying conditions for most of the night. The rain has stayed away for the past 10 minutes or so. It was torrential on a couple of occasions. Tough battle out there for both teams. Who can prevail? As Boak picked it up off the ground to Finlayson from the restart. Hands it inboard to Butters. Looks to chip it in the direction of Mead. He has it at right forward pocket, or McEntee rather, and then he goes in the direction of Dixon. Missed him. He's not looking all that well, Dixon. He's still limping around, but he's remained out there. McEntee missed him. It goes over the boundary line at right full forward in front of the old scoreboard here. Port's lead is 9 points. 25 gone in the last.
4 minutes to play. Still plenty of time for both sides. Dixon wins it down looking for Rioli. Handed it out to Powell-Pepper. Dixon again. Tries to shrug the tackle. Can't get away. Had to handball in hope. Back towards Rosie. Gathers. Brushes a couple. Kicks around the body to the top of the goal square. Plenty of Dogs. Take your pick.
Yeah, got to go here now, Dogs.
O'Brien cuts it off. Poor kick though. Sat up a bit too long in the end for Baker. Charging across Butters. Good snap from 30. Phenomenal finish. Port just kept pressing, and the Dogs make a brutal error in the late stages of the final term. Could that be the dagger? Port up by 15, 10-10-7, he plays 8-7, 55, 25 into the final term on Grandstand AFL.
They'll have to go, Josh, but not there. Yeah, go long down the middle, not short to a 50-50, and well, fitting really, Zach Butters. I mean, it's interesting. I think he's probably been Port's best player across the night, Josh, for 4 quarters.
Yeah.
And he was a weight to that, caused the turnover. A lovely finish, so gets some reward on the scoreboard for his game. 31 possessions, 16 of those contested and 7 clearances, 5 inside 50. So Terrific game across the four quarters, as I said. There's been some standouts from the Dogs, but that's probably the killer there.
The restart. English got the tap down. It'll bounce back to him. He throws it on the boot. Kicks inside forward 50. It's off hands. Spills down to Rosie, who calmly finds Drew.
Connor Rosie's had a big second half as well. The two young stars for the Power. Going to will them over the line here.
Drew out towards Boak, who'll take a couple of deep breaths and goes on a run. Heads in the direction of a pack at right half forward. English is there off his hands, down to Wines. Got tackled and lost it. Umpire says free kick. Holding the ball, going the way of Duray. Well, not a great pass. Bounced right in front of Dale. Was set upon by Boak immediately. Ball spilled out the side. Trying to get to it. Couple of players are there. Wines immediately applies pressure, and holding the ball will be the decision. Going against Duray. Wines will get up and he'll be able to take a shot, or at least put it towards the top of the goal square from about 55 out.
Almost take your 30 here, don't you?
One more will do it. Port eyeing off consecutive victories in their third of the campaign. Wines will head into the scoreboard pocket. Marshall did get away from O'Brien, but the kick was shallow. Took a bounce over the boundary line. It'll be tossed back into play. Comparison of the midfields, Josh and Luke. Zach Butters, Connor Rosie combining for 17 disposals this quarter. Yep. Bontempelli and McRae 3.
That tells a story there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, since that probably the 8-10 minute mark of this quarter, it's been all Port.
Throwing in. Finlayson takes clean possession. Kicks towards goal. Intercepted by Liam Jones. Heads back into the left back pocket. Taken again by Powell Pepper. Puts it across the face of goal. Marked by Richards. He's at right full back. The Bulldogs have to move it. Rust roll the dice. Treloar to Richards at right half back. Looking for lob on centre wing. One down there by Burton. Trying to go through Butters. Might have been held. He was. And taken high too into the process against Waitman. Can't criticise his efforts tonight for the Bulldogs. Ball in the hand of Butters. Disposal 10 or 11 actually for him in this quarter alone. He moves it short and hugging the boundary line. It's been marked just by Horne-Francis.
11th disposal this quarter, Clint.
It's for Horne-Francis to join Butters. He gets a massive cheer to match out those people that are giving him a bit of a Bronx cheer. Kicks inside forward 50 off the hands of the Bulldogs. It came down towards Treloar, kicked into the logo on centre wing, where Bergman marks and moves it short and laterally towards the wing. And Burton then comes back after taking the mark. They'll set up again here, Port Adelaide, as Marshall in defence now marks at left half back.
The Dogs kept rolling the dice, but Port Adelaide set up and we're ready. Long ball up towards left half forward. Powell Pepper flew, cleared the pack and over the boundary line for a boundary throw-in. What a weekend it's been for South Australian footy. The Crows arrived on Thursday night. We've seen plenty of action across the state. Port Adelaide has certainly answered the call tonight in wet and miserable conditions. Finlayson caught behind, wins it down. Drew was front and square. Lost out to Richards. Coming through, Waitman may have been caught high. On the logo, centre wing, western side. They need to be quick. Waitman heads up to right half forward. Ugle-Hagan in front position, nearly juggled it against McKenzie. Johannesson got away, handed it to Bontempelli. Now back to Arthur Jones, wrapped up by Drew, who flipped him over the boundary line high. Brave decision there by the official. And I think he did just get him over the shoulder. It was very close.
That's a pretty good
Jones went
mate.
for the fend off, and I think that's actually maybe where he got him. Very tight angle from 45, just has to hit and hope. He'll head for home. It's curling towards the behind line. Norton with a huge sit. It's rushed through for a minor score. And the power party is on at the Adelaide Oval. Their season is back on track. Consecutive wins for the first time this year. They'll get over the line by 14 points in the wet. 10-10-70 to 8-8-56. 45,000 in the house for the doubleheader, and it's the Power who finish in the finale.
It's more than a sport, it's the truth.
Have opened again, but there's no raining on Port's parade tonight. Home by 14 points. They led by 15 at the opening term, 9 at the half, trailed by 2 at three-quarter time, but steadied to win by 14. 10-10-70 to 8-8-56 in front of 45,115. The goal kickers for Port, Burne-Jones with two vital late goals for Todd Marshall, and singles to Powell-Pepper, to Houston, Dersma, Butters, Boat and McEntee. While for the Western Bulldogs, Cody Waitman returned with 4 goals in his first game for the year, and there were singles to English, to Norton, Hannon and Bontempelli. Port Adelaide, they go to 3-2. The Bulldogs, the mirror image, they're 2-3 from the 5 rounds so far. What have you made of things, gentlemen? Let's check out who stood out for you and get the votes in the ABC Footballer of the Year as well. Josh Franco and Luke Ball.
Well, at three-quarter time, it was almost looked like the Bulldogs, didn't it? They dominated, sort of had the edge in that third quarter. And at three-quarter time, and even to about the 10-minute mark of that last quarter when they dominated inside 50s, the Western Bulldogs, Port Adelaide did stand tough. And from that 10-minute mark, it was all Port Adelaide. They dominated the inside 50s. They dominated the contested possessions. Rosie, Butters were getting their hands on the footy. All of a sudden, Jason Horne-Francis came alive. He had 11 disposals in that last quarter after having just 8 in the first 3 quarters. Todd Marshall, as you said, Clint, kicked a couple of really important goals when the game was in the balance. And then we also talk about critical moments in the game. And I must admit, I don't know what the score was at that point in time, but the Alia v Norton tackle in the goal square could potentially be a game changer.
And then he took the mark too, the outpointed Ugelhagen.
Right.
That was nights like this, they come down to moments, don't they?
Yeah.
And he really stood up late at that end. And Todd Marshall, you're right, because I mean the Dog took the first goal, got out to 8 points, were controlling field position, the rain was coming down again, and you thought, oh well, this is a really good test for Port. Well, you have to say they passed it with flying colours. It was a win full of character from that moment on, as you said. And it was their young guns. It was Horne-Francis. It was Butters, who was really good across the night, but 11 possessions in the last quarter, and Rosie kept running as well, 7 possessions. Houston had a really good night too. He had 6 late, and as you said, from that 10-minute mark, they kicked 4 goals to nothing and ran away with it in the end with a bit of breathing space. So, off the back of last week's character-building win, that's another one that they can put in the bank as, good opposition, we think. Opposition that are absolutely vying for the point end of the season like us. Challenged several times throughout the night, challenging conditions, man down, and put the foot down when it mattered and went away to win. So, full credit to Port. Dogs are brave, I thought. Yeah, they had a crack tonight. They certainly didn't shirk anything. I thought, well, it'd be interesting to vote. We might have to chat about that, because I think you could argue they had 3 or 4 of the best 5 or 6 players on the ground. I thought English was superb all night. Amazing though, isn't it? Just the move to take Lysett off, and it forced Dixon into the ruck, and then Finlayson in the end. Whilst he didn't get a heap of the footy, just that change in mind, that little change potentially change the mindset of the midfielders around him. And in the end, in that second half of that last quarter, they dominated the clearances. But I thought English was just superb across the night. Really liked Treloar's game, just worked his backside off in the conditions. Liberatore got better as the game went on. And Bontempelli's first half was just extraordinary. The move to put Drew onto him certainly took him out. It took his influence, nullified his influence in that second half. So you've got to say a good night for Ken in the coach's box. Made some really good strategic moves. As much as you can on a night like this, where it really is about rolling your sleeves up, getting dirty and grinding out a win.
I reckon it's a bit of a ballsy move too in terms of taking Lysett off, who's your predominant ruckman. You had Finlayson up forward, who wasn't having any impact whatsoever, but to pull Lysett off and use your tactical sub in Jackson Mead to inject some speed and pace into the game, I reckon it's a gutsy move, and it's always easy in hindsight to assess how it went, but as you said, I reckon a great tactical move from Ken Hinkley.
Let's head down into the Port Adelaide rooms. Jack Paquetta's amongst it all.
A very jubilant Port Adelaide, just heading back down now into the rooms, all gathering around, getting around Tom Jonas, giving the injured skipper some big high fives, trying to encourage him into the circle, but he's going to stay on the outside. Not too many people in here today, actually, but let's have a listen to the song. So there we have it. Port Adelaide moving to 3-2. We'll hope to get you an interview shortly.
Great work down there, Jack. Plenty of celebrations in the Port rooms after a tough night in terms of conditions. It was bucketing down this evening here in Adelaide. They've got a very winnable game next up too, with respect to everyone back home. But the West Coast Eagles here in Adelaide on Saturday, the early game on Saturday for Port Adelaide. So as they look to continue to build their season, they could win could win 3 in a row, winning their next one. Then it gets a bit tougher, depending on what happens tomorrow. St Kilda in Melbourne at the Docklands. But nevertheless, they're back up and about Port Adelaide with the way that they performed today. Just repeating those other games earlier today, Brisbane by 75 over North Melbourne, and Essendon had a good win too, a surprise win, 27 points to the good of Melbourne. 3 games tomorrow: Geelong and the Eagles, GWS and Hawthorn, and Collingwood and St Kilda. I do want to take you back, and I think you said it, Josh, one of the key moments in regards to potential momentum swings in game-changing moments, Ali's tackle on Norton. I looked at it and I was 50-50. Did Norton have the football? Was he tackled without it? He seemed to pick it up, lose it, and then as he was sort of losing it is when Ali made the tackle. Yeah, how did you perceive it?
Well, I think first and foremost, he fumbled. So, in a sense, if he had picked it up cleanly, he would have put it straight on his boot and kicked the goal. So the fumble invited the pressure in. And, we needed to have another look at it. For me, it was like almost a tackle. It wasn't even a real tackle. It was a lunge and pressure, and, could have been a trip as well, but probably not enough in the conditions. That would have happened several times across the night. But given where it was and the stage of the game and what the scoreboard said, it was a key moment, and Alir is starting to become pretty reliable in those key moments, isn't he, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting you talk about those key moments and the Alir v Norton tackle. We've got 4 people up here who can't definitively say yes
absolutely.
or no. So, the umpire's call in that split second, and he's made the call, and it did prove to be a critical component.
I'm not unhappy about it at all. It is just one of those things where I think we'll go back and go,
yes. And they'll dissect it during the week, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'll be doing that. I'll go back to the hotel room tonight and probably watch it 3 or 4 times. But gut feeling was I think it was the right call. And as you said, particularly, Luke, under the conditions as well, there should be a little bit of leniency given. And I think it was the right call. But I bring up Alir there because I also want to bring up Alir at the other end of the ground. That little fingertip touch to knock the ball onto the goalpost when it looked for all money that was going to be a goal. It was a really important moment. Ugle-Hagan having the shot at goal. It's not too far away from 3/4 time. They were slightly in front. It would have put them more than a goal in front if you'd been able to kick it. Probably out to about 9 points from memory. That's another key defensive moment from Alir.
Absolutely. And it's interesting having spent 4 years at Sydney and working closely with John Longmire. And I guess one of his big mantras was, and I know it sounds civil, but never give up the chase, never give up any play within any component of any period within a game, because you never know what that can do in terms of the final result. So you're right, Aliir outstanding the last 2 weeks. He touched that Florent kick on the line, and that one again today, potentially a match winner.
He had 11 disposals tonight, and all 11 were intercept possessions.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a good contest, wasn't it? Yeah, because at times Norton looked dangerous, and it's a tough night for forwards, we know that, and especially high-marking forwards. At times, though, Norton looked dangerous, but you'd probably have to say that Aliir just got the points.
I'm bemused by he's not playing against North Melbourne, but this happened when Port played Collingwood. Jason Horne-Francis been booed. I'll put my hand up here. I don't have a problem with the pantomime boo. Sorry for players who may have gone from one club to another, but I don't have a problem with it. I get it. If someone played for your club and they're now back here, and I get all that. That's part of, we want passion from footy. That's part of the theatre of footy. It's the pantomime boo. But for the life of me, I cannot work out why, and it would have been the neutrals in the ground and potentially the Bulldogs supporters, but more the neutrals, because certainly the Port Adelaide fans weren't booing him. Why on earth is Jason Horne-Francis getting booed?
It almost feels like a state against a player. It's the Victorian clubs that are booing him.
Well, I think also too, he's left under, would you say, controversial circumstances?
No, I agree with that.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to, I guess, sort of paint a picture, a bit of context around potentially why they're doing it. And I'm totally on board with you, Clint. I don't understand it either, but he's come to Port Adelaide. He's number 1 draft pick. He left the Kangaroos. So I guess there's always people out there that are trying to knock him down.
If we were up in Mount Barker, I'd understand it.
Yeah.
I get why North fans like it or not. And I know that there's a lot of people who think booing is outrageous, and I accept that. But I'm prepared to live with what I've always termed the pantomime boo. You're now the bad guy because you've left us. I just don't understand why so many other people... Jake Nile wrote a piece about it suggesting that it's almost that by moving from one of the Melbourne clubs, people felt because it happened so quickly, you haven't done your time. So there's a feeling where you didn't do your time at this club that's drafted you, and so therefore we're unhappy about that. I think there might be an element of truth, but without actually getting into the psyche of some of the supporters, I bring it up because he had a terrific final quarter. It's not like it worried him in the slightest.
So that's the point. Yeah, I don't think it worries him at all. I don't think it's worried too many that get the boos in the past as well. But it is. It's a bit of sheep mentality, isn't it? It's like someone else is doing it, so I'll do it as well, and it's something to do with the footy. But I like Craig McRae's take on it. He teaches his young daughter not to boo. We don't boo in our household. But you come along to the footy, and that's what some people do. So, but you're right. It didn't deter him from really almost being the match winner in that last quarter. Yeah.
The funny thing with Jason Horne-Francis is he has an incredible relationship with Ken Hinkley, and in the past, Todd Marshall was one of the whipping boys of the Port Adelaide Footy Club where he wasn't delivering to his potential, and Ken wrapped his arms around him. He'd had a lot going on off field, and it was almost this father-son relationship. And it feels like Jason Horne-Francis is now filling that role. We had Ken on a couple of weeks ago on SA Grandstand, and I critiqued Jason not chasing down for tackles, and Ken gave me a clip for it and said, mate, we're looking after him. He's young, he's going to develop, and he's very defensive of Jason Horne-Francis, and he's really retaliated to the media at times when they've criticised him.
Well, and he made a beeline for him after the game. I don't know if you saw that, and had a good, got right up close in his face, almost like a father would do, giving his son a pat on the back. And I'm sure the message would have been that last quarter, that's what we know you're capable of. Let's keep building to the point where, and we spoke about it pre-game, let's build to the point where we can bring that effort, not necessarily the possessions, but bring that level of effort across a 4-quarter game. And that'll come. It's his second year, we know that. I think the other part too, just back on the North, it's a win. It's going to be a win-win. I think North, whilst it was controversial and number 1 pick, you'd hope that you're going to be able to keep them for more than 1 year. In the end, they're going to be able to try. Well, it looks like they're going to be able to turn it into a positive with Sheasel and Wardlaw, who we haven't seen yet.
Sheasel already.
I mean, he's a star, isn't he?
Yeah.
So, look, whilst there were circumstances around it that potentially were controversial, I think both sides are going to win out of it in the end, in the long run.
And I think further to it as well, we keep forgetting he's only 20 years old.
Yeah.
Like, he's still a baby. I've got a 19-year-old at home, and he's only 20-year-old, this Jason Horne-Francis, and he's going to develop into a star of the competition, and I reckon he's handling himself pretty well at the moment.
Just on those final term stats, if I can get this to work. There we go. 4th quarter. Jason Horne-Francis, final term, 11 disposals, 9 kicks, 2 hand passes, 2 marks, a tackle, 7 contested possessions, 5 ground ball gets, 4 clearances, 5 inside 50s.
Yeah.
I knew he went pretty well, but they are quite staggering when you think about what he's been able to do in that one quarter. 19 disposals for the entire game. So another good game from Jason Horne-Francis.
Yeah.
Before we have a little delve into the Western Bulldogs and what it means for them, anything else stand out for any of you in terms of Port Adelaide tonight?
Well, probably the only thing I would say is, and having obviously watched Port Adelaide closely over the first 5 rounds, there's a huge amount of external pressure based on win-loss. And when I say external pressure, I'm talking about Ken Hinkley. So at least for a week it dispels a bit more of that.
Let's go down into the rooms. Josh Paquetta.
Thanks, Clint. We've got Port Adelaide's new forward machine, Darcy Byrne-Jones. And Darcy, what does it mean to the group to get a win like that in such a grind?
Yeah, it means a lot. I mean, we've been obviously had a couple of weeks where things didn't go how we wanted to, but we're just trying to build belief, and wins like that, and wins last week against Sydney really helped that, and just to stick at it, and things weren't going our way, and some individuals probably weren't playing they wanted to play for the first 3 quarters, but then to have an impact in that last quarter and come back and win, just build belief for the group. Really exciting.
It was a real 4-quarter slog, especially in the weather. It was torrential at stages there. What were the conditions like out there?
Yeah, it was obviously pretty slippery, and ball movement was pretty hard, but those games you just got to grind away and stick at it, and the team that's tougher for longer usually wins, but both teams had their turn, and we were lucky enough to come out on top at the end.
Physically, just how taxing was it?
Yeah, my body's pretty cooked, mate, to be honest. I haven't spent much time up forward, but a couple of days to recover and I'll be right.
I'm sure the boys have plenty of questions for you.
Darcy, Clint Wilden here. Congratulations. A career high for you tonight. 2 goals. Tell us what it was like to actually get the 2. They were all important tonight in the conditions.
Yeah, it was. It felt a bit weird, actually. I don't even know if I've kicked 2 for the other however many games I've played, but it felt good. It's exciting. Obviously, things probably weren't going personally how they wanted to down back. So to get the opportunity up forward, I was really grateful and just trying to seize it with both hands.
No, we were cheering for you. 7 goals in 154 games beforehand, and 2 tonight. But also just talking about going down back, Aliir again tonight. A couple of big moments. The touch on the line with Ugle-Hagan that looked like it was going through for a goal, and then that despairing effort against Aaron Norton late as well. How big was he tonight for you?
Yeah, look, he's huge. He's probably one of the better defenders in the competition, and when he plays like that, he's really important for us and really helps us win, I guess. And it's really great to have him up and about and playing well.
And Darcy, Josh Franco here. Congratulations on your game tonight. I thought your work forward was absolutely outstanding. And one other player that we've just been talking about before we crossed down to you in the rooms was Jason Horne-Francis and what he's brought to the Port Adelaide Footy Club. Obviously, he's come over from the Kangaroos, and there's been a lot of external pressure placed on his shoulders. But what's he added to the group?
Yeah, look, he first and foremost, footy-wise, he's just a contested beast, and he's really competitive. He trains really hard. He's fit in really well with the group, both on the field and then off the field. I think at times you forget he's only 19. He's young. He's got so much footy ahead of him. It's scary to think what it would be like in a few years.
Just back to your role again tonight, Darcy. You mentioned yourself that things haven't been going to plan down back. Obviously, all Australian a couple of years ago across half back. Can you just unpack a bit of that for us, and what's been said and what you're working on during the week? I'm sure you're putting a lot of work on it during the week. And then tonight, did you have a role? Looked like you had a bit of Bailey Dale and potentially trying to keep him quiet and quell his rebound out of defence.
Yeah, look. On a personal note, I guess it's hard to put a finger on where things are going wrong. If I had the fix, I'd probably be trying to do it. But it's just trying to stay as composed as I can and keep working hard, and things will eventually turn. In terms of a role tonight, no specific role, but obviously Bailey Dale is just a classy player, and when he gets his offence going for them, he's really dangerous. So as a group, I thought we did a reasonable job to slow him down.
it was always going to be a war of attrition, and you mentioned, it's toughest for longest. That first 5-10 minutes of that last quarter, it felt like the Dogs were in control and really threatening. I think they had 5 inside 50s in a row, but then from that point on, it was an avalanche, and you kicked 4 goals to nothing. And I thought, some of your younger players, Butters and Rosie, we've spoken about Horn Francis, really led the way. So you must be proud of that first and foremost, but also have confidence in your ability to run out 4 quarters.
Yeah, definitely. We spoke about it 3/4 time that the momentum will eventually swing our way, and we've got to make the most of our opportunities when it does. And I thought we were able to do that. And those younger boys, it's a little bit of a changing of the guard. They're the leaders of the club now, and we're expecting them to step up, and they're doing a really good job.
Darcy, Aaron Bryant's here. The tactical sub tonight raised a few eyebrows. Scott Lycett out felt like an odd decision, but it seemed like it was a masterstroke in the end. Jeremy Finlayson in the middle dominated the clearance count. Can you tell us a bit about whether you were planning to do something like that tonight in the wet?
Well, I've got no idea, mate, to be honest. I think, whether the coaches thought, in the conditions, Jeremy's really talented when the ball's on the ground as well. So, whether they thought that we needed that extra class on the ground, I guess that's probably in their decision-making. But, Scott's been a really important player for us, and, he's going to be a really important player for us for the rest of the year.
You won't be able to take us into the mindset of Ken Hinkley on the Willem Drew tagging role, but can you tell us a bit about how versatile he is in the middle, because he completely shut down Marcus Bontempelli tonight?
Yeah, he's a really underrated player. Externally, internally, we love him. We love what he does. He's a great leader as well. He'd do anything for the team, and he'd do anything for anyone. So, he's one of those guys you run out with, and you walk a little bit taller because he's going to give his all.
One question for you, because unfortunately the pressure continues around your coach no matter what seems to happen. How much of a relief is it for the group when you get a win like that tonight for your coach and for Ken Hinkley and for the club?
Yeah, I guess there's a little bit of relief, but we internally don't focus on that stuff too much. You start focusing on those things and get too distracted, then you lose sight of what's going to help you win footy games. So we just focus on where we need to improve, what we're doing well, and leave that external noise outside of the club.
And a rare positive, I would imagine, the fact you don't have to travel. It rarely happens when you have the showdowns, of course, but you don't have to travel. You get to stay at home. How important is that at this stage of the season, that you get a little bit of time not having to get on a flight?
Yeah, it's nice. Obviously, the away trips do take a little bit extra out of you in terms of travelling and flying and sleeping in hotels and stuff. We're grateful that Gather Round was in Adelaide, and it's been a big success. I think all the fans that braved the weather tonight. We're really grateful for that, and we look forward to having it in Adelaide next year.
Well said at the end. Thanks very much for having a chat to us, Darcy. Nice to be able to say, for, I'd reckon, the first time ever, equal leading goal kicker for Port Adelaide tonight. Congratulations.
Yep, cheers. Thanks, boys.
Good on you. Darcy Byrne-Jones downstairs in the room. It's good to have a chat with him on Grandstand AFL.
I really liked his game. I thought he was absolutely outstanding forward.
He was?
Yep. Influence in terms of hitting the scoreboard, but also pressure and presenting at the kicker and providing that option. I guess he's obviously not a very tall player, but also providing an option ahead of the footy. I thought he played really well tonight, Darcy.
We need to have a look at some of the numbers before we get the votes in the ABC Football of the Year. One of the numbers I'd be keen to have a look at later tonight is how many mils ended up in the rain gauges.
Still
around
going.
We learnt last night, Clint, I'm not a weatherman. I'm a commentator. I can't read the radar properly.
No, I was no one was happier than me that you were wrong about when the rain was going to come in. We got out of Norwood, got home, no problems, and then it bucketed down here at the Adelaide Oval, which it has continued to do for today and for this evening.
Just called it early, that was it.
That's right.
Ahead of my time.
Hopefully better weather tonight. What are the other numbers tell us after Port won by 14 points over the Western Bulldogs?
So the Dogs, that they did for the majority of the night, won disposals by 30 in the end, 353 to 322. They did lose the contested possession count again, so Port won that by single digits against the Swans last week. They've done that again tonight, 152 to 147. The Dogs lost the turnover count 90 to 83 as well. In terms of possession getters, Zach Butters had 32 and a goal. Ollie Wines 26 as well, and I did speak to Josh Carr in the build-up about Ollie Wines, and obviously averaging about 22 a game, so he's still good but not great. And he did say he was a bit underdone heading into the season. Zach Butters was the same, because he had an AC joint injury heading into the campaign and felt like his first 3 weeks weren't his best, and clearly he's back to ripping form once again. The inside 50 count won by Port Adelaide, 57-50. They were pretty good with it as well. 47% heading inside 50 to the Dogs, 32%. The free kick count relatively even, 24-23 in favour of the Dogs. Clearances dead even, 40 apiece, and that was really levelled out by Jeremy Finlayson, who won, was it 4 or 5 consecutive clearances when he was entered into the ruck with Charlie Dixon on the bench. The hit-out count did go the Dogs' way, 44-37. Largely due to Jim English, who had 23 touches, 27 hit-outs, a goal to his name as well, and 11 contested possessions. The best midfielder for the Dogs, Adam Treloar, with 35 touches. And as Clint's mentioned, Cody Waitman with 4 goals on return for the Dogs certainly could be the spark that could kickstart their season once again. I know you've got it up there on your phone, Clint. I just saw it before as well. Gee, listen to that rain. I feel for the groundsmen who've got the heaters out trying to get the grass to grow. I don't know if it's going to do much because it is bucketing down.
It is almost like it's snowing. It is that heavy. When you see rain that turns white, and that's what we're getting at the moment as the seagulls swirl around in front of us.
Can't believe they're braving it.
No, looking for somewhere to hide from it.